Thanks for watching, please subscribe. Title, I Can't Act Anymore. Author, Drunk Long Song. Copywriting, Miu Miu. Transmigrated into a novel that combines the elements of defrauding marriage by women's clothing, a wealthy family's wrongdoing and rebirth and revenge. He transmigrated into the scumbag who cheated on the marriage, the raccoon cat who changed the prince, and the protagonist's revenge. And now, he was standing at the gate of the Civil Affairs Bureau with the full-text sufferer, holding a freshly issued marriage certificate in his hand. Miu Miu shuddered, raised his head, and saw that the suffering master had a sinister expression, and pulled the corners of his mouth at him, revealing a sinister smirk that wished he could eat his blood and flesh. Miu Miu's legs went limp, his eyes turned black, and he trembled. My good brother, why don't we get a divorce? Urban sitcom, 5.4 on V. Do nothing wrong. Content tags, urban love. Sweet text through the book. Search keywords, protagonist, Miu Miu, Qin Yuchen. Supporting role, others, one sentence. Introduction, good brother, why don't we get a divorce? Conception, go forward alone, persevere. Comment on the work. Miu Miu transmigrated into a novel that combines the elements of defrauding marriage by women's clothing, a wealthy family's wrongdoing and rebirth and revenge. He transmigrated into the scumbag who cheated on the marriage, the raccoon cat who changed the prince, and the protagonist's revenge, with death arrows all over his body. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the marriage certificate in his hand, and Qin Yuchen, the biggest sufferer in the whole text, was slowly approaching. From then on, Miu Miu lived a life of PlayerUnknown's battlegrounds under the oppression of Qin Yuchen. This article is mainly based on daily interaction, with vivid characters, humorous and lively language, easy and smooth writing, and the warmth and healing of the article are shown in the details. The protagonist is rich in inner drama, full of laughs, and the daily relationship with friends is full of fun, which is hilarious and unbearable. Thanks for watching, please subscribe. The sun is at its peak in July. On the camphor trees in the coastal green belt of City Z, there was a loud noise of cicadas. On the seawall at the end of Binhai Road, a few couples in wedding dresses and suits are taking wedding photos. The sea breeze blew the photographer's voice into pieces. Just as he was about to raise his voice to remind him, he caught a glimpse of bright yellow from the corner of his eye, turned his head to look, and subconsciously restrained his voice. On a rest chair under the shade of a tree by the roadside, sat a figure in a light yellow dress. She dozed off with her head slightly sideways, with gentle makeup on her delicate and beautiful face. A head of long, straight black hair hangs down softly on the shoulders and tender white bare arms, the eyelashes of the lightly closed eyes are thick and slender, and even a small fan's-shaped shadow is reflected under the eyes. There was a wind blowing, wrapped in the humidity of the sea, lifting the light yellow skirt on her body, revealing her jade-like ankles. She rested peacefully in the sun, and even the camphor trees that were blowing in the wind could not bear to disturb her, so she calmed down. The unwilling wind gently lifted the lace necklace of the same color around her neck, and the knotted string brushed against the beautiful collarbone, disturbing the beauty's light sleep. The beauty's eyelashes trembled slightly, and she slowly woke up. Miu Miu opened his eyes in a daze, and they were instantly closed by the midday sun. He raised his hand, trying to block some of the light. As soon as he raised his hand, Miu Miu noticed that he was still holding something in his hand. Miu Miu. I fell asleep with my phone in my hand last night? Miu Miu recalled it bewilderedly. Oh. Last night, he was indeed online with someone with his mobile phone. Because of a novel. Speaking of this novel, Miu Miu became angry. He has been chasing the book I Was Reborn after marrying the Black Widow for more than half a year. This is a standard urban rebirth novel for men. From the very beginning of this article, the hero put the woman who assassinated him in the previous life into limbo, making her terrified every day, but had to submit to her increasingly powerful husband. Afterwards, the male protagonist killed all directions, trampled down all those who had bullied him before, and then rose steadily all the way to the top. From the article up to here, it can be regarded as a pure and refreshing article. It wasn't until the protagonist reached the pinnacle of his life that he was having a great time, and the author suddenly discovered that his protagonist hadn't pushed a single girl, and had always been a married man. On that day, he finally realized that his literary title was not Rebirth, Rise to the Clouds, but I Was Reborn After Marrying the Black Widow. So, just as the readers were yelling and pushing the girl to a perfect ending, the author poured some sulfuric acid into his mind. He changed his style of writing and wrote the girl who was gradually tamed by the hero into a big guy in women's clothing. This is not over, the author also wrote, this person actually occupies the noble background that the hero should have. In the last life, for the sake of his own prosperity and wealth, this person preemptively acted as a girl to seduce the male lead, and secretly used the male lead's trust in him to play the male lead to death. Ah! At that time, Miu Miu's whole body was split apart, feeling that his brain was being rubbed against the ground by the author. Miu Miu, who was deeply insulted by his IQ, was outraged, and had a 2-4-HOUR high-intensity confrontation in the book review area. As a result, his high-intensity surfing failed to get the author's response, and he did not wait for the update of the next chapter. The author posted a post saying that the data is rotten and he will be scolded. I will not serve you anymore. Bye-bye. Then the keyboard was thrown away, and the died, leaving Miu Miu impotent and furious. The data in this article is really not very good. The reason why Miu Miu is attracted is actually because the Black Widow has the same name as him. Internet articles, as long as they can pass the time, Miu Miu saw that there was a character with the same name as him in this book, and it was quite exciting, and he could read it just by doing it. But why did things develop like this? When Miu Miu thought of this, he was so angry that he didn't want to sleep anymore. He opened one eye, and subconsciously touched the side button of the phone with his fingers. But I couldn't touch the side button, and it wasn't his phone that I saw when I opened my eyes. Miu Miu stared blankly at the things in his hand. Not a cell phone. Is red. Square and square. The three largest characters on it can be seen clearly even with his 300-degree myopia. Marriage certificate. Miu Miu? WTF? Miu Miu shuddered and woke up instantly. The target scene is not his dormitory wall covered with sports posters, but the ocean that separates him all the way. The sound of the tide and the smell of the sea smelled from the tip of the nose seemed very real as the waves lapped against the anti-wave. Miu Miu's eyes widened. How did he sleep from the bed in the inland mountain city to the rest chair by the coastal road? Miu Miu turned his head to look around, and when he tilted his head, he saw the gilded signboard of Jinwu District Civil Affairs Bureau, City Z. Dreaming? Miu Miu withdrew his gaze and looked at the marriage certificate in his hand. Could it be that he wanted a girlfriend, so his brain was in place in one step, skipping the process and directly giving him a wife? Whoa! Makes sense. Miu Miu immediately became energetic. A gust of sea breeze came along with the tide, blowing the light yellow dress on Miu Miu slightly swollen. Miu Miu, who was about to open the marriage certificate to see his wife, randomly pulled the strands of hair blown onto his face. Miu Miu paused. Hey! Miu Miu looked at the hair he had just pulled, and grabbed it with his backhand. Long, soft, and almost as silky as satin to the touch. Pull it again, and the scalp will still hurt. Miu Miu's heart skipped a beat. Etc. There seems to be something wrong. He tightly squeezed the marriage certificate in his hand, and suddenly looked down. It's a skirt. It is a long skirt. It's a lace dress. Miu Miu gasped. He twitched his legs in horror, felt it, and then heaved a sigh of relief. The good brother is still there. But what's the matter with this skirt? Miu Miu stood up with a chuckle, and sat back down because of the unsteady center of gravity, and the marriage certificate in his hand fell to the ground. Miu Miu stretched his feet blankly, and saw the wedge sandals on his feet. Boy, what is this? Every pure man has a woman's dream in his heart? Miu Miu felt that something was weird. Whispering in his heart, he bent down to pick up the marriage certificate that fell on the floor, and opened it. The men and women in the photos are very close, with an intimacy in their expressions. The man looks upright and photogenic, with a pair of peach blossom eyes full of affection, thin lips slightly pursed, trying hard to suppress the smile, but no matter what he can't stop the overflowing happiness. On the female side, she has a pretty face, her cat-like eyes are slightly drooping, her smile is sweet, with a little shyness, she looks well-behaved and gentle. Miu Miu's expression gradually became old. Ah, this! What's up? This guy doesn't look like him, does he? Miu Miu wrinkled his face, and turned his gaze to the name of the person under the photo. Name, Qin Yuchen. Sex, male. Name, Miu Miu. Gender, female. Sigma? Miu Miu closed the marriage certificate with a snap. Reopen. Name, Qin Yuchen. Sex, male. Name, Miu Miu. Miu Miu closed the marriage certificate again. Open again. Name, Qin Yuchen. Sex, male. The expression on Miu Miu's face gradually went blank. Qin Yuchen. He is familiar with this name. Isn't this the name of the male protagonist in the author's article that he was still abusing passionately last night? Mu. He is more familiar with this name. Miu Miu pinched the marriage certificate, stared at the woman's face for a long time, and then closed it with a snap. It's over. Taking a closer look, this beauty does seem to be very similar to him. Miu Miu couldn't help but pinched his legs again. The good brother is indeed lying there safely. Good guy. Miu Miu's scalp tingles when he thinks of the man on the marriage certificate. Currently known, Qin Yuchen and Miu Miu are married. Qin Yuchen is the male protagonist of I Was Reborn After Marrying the Black Widow. Miu Miu is a scumbag in I Was Reborn After Marrying the Black Widow. Also know, his name is Miu Miu, and the scumbag who pretends to be a cheater is also called Miu Miu. He now has long hair, wears a skirt, and holds the marriage certificate of Miu Miu and Qin Yuchen in his hand. The photo of the woman on the marriage certificate is so similar to him. This proves that, Mu Mu equals women's big guy, he equals women's big guy available, he equals Miu Miu equals woman disguised as a fraudulent marriage scum equals Qin Yuchen's legal wife. Who the would want this, but my wife is actually myself. Niu, Miu Miu. Every dream is a dream of cheating marriage with women's clothing. Miu Miu couldn't help but reflect on it, and felt that it was probably because he was still fighting with the people in the book review area before going to bed last night. As the saying goes, thinking by day and dreaming by night, this is very reasonable. Miu Miu thought to himself that this dream was really nonsense, so he didn't want to do it. Miu Miu simply stretched out his right hand and pinched his left arm vigorously, shivering from the pain, so he almost didn't cry out. But not only did he not wake up, the pain was still solid, without any reduction. Miu Miu pinched himself again. Everything in front of me remains unchanged. The tide slowly slapped against the breakwater, making a mocking sound of crash la la la. Miu Miu waited quietly. Beads of sweat appeared on Miu Miu's forehead. Miu Miu's expression gradually became stiff. No, 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 no. The fashion of wearing books won't just fall on me, right? Isn't it just to attack the author a few times, so it won't hurt me so much, right? Miu Miu rubbed his left arm, which was quickly turning red and blue, feeling a little panicked. He thought of those supporting characters and cannon fodder who opposed the protagonist in the novel. The ones who were trampled the least were bankrupt, and most of the rest were notorious, betrayed relatives, and even lost their families. Grass. Miu Miu's expression distorted into the shape of a mask of pain. If I had known this, I shouldn't rush to the author, coaxing him to finish the follow-up before rushing. Miu Miu hugged his head. What should we do now? Miu Miu pinched the marriage certificate tightly, scratching his hands anxiously. The time he is now should be the time when the hero just got the certificate with the fraudulent marriage. So the most important question is that male lead the one who came back from rebirth? If not, get divorced directly. If so. Mew Mew thought hard, and finally closed his eyes. If it is born again, it will also be divorced. Mew Mew really can't think of any solution that can achieve the best of both worlds. Could it be that he, an unarmed otaku, can still break up with Chin Yuchen who goes to the gym every day to push himself? Mew Mew frowned. He put his hand on the armrest of the rest chair, stepped on his wet shoes, stood up, took a few steps tentatively, and breathed a sigh of relief. When prepared, the shoe is quite comfortable. Thanks to this sister, no, this good brother didn't wear stilettos, otherwise he might have to perform a series of splits for innocent passers-by. Chin Yuchen stood behind the tree in Binhai Park, holding a bag of lotus mist in his hand, watching from a distance the very familiar figure running and jumping around the rest chair. No. It should be him, he seems a little unaccustomed to the shoes on his feet, and his running and jumping movements are a bit clumsy and jerky. Like a soft and ignorant rabbit who is ignorant of the world. Rabbit! Chin Yuchen sneered, and the memories in his mind surged and roared, condensing the love in the eyes of the pair of peach blossoms into a cold and biting undercurrent. He looked down at Lian Wu in his hand. This is Mew Mew's favorite fruit. Chin Yuchen once firmly believed that Mew Mew liked him. Even when he saw Mew Mew, who was supposed to be his wife, dressed in men's clothing and frequently went out and about with the head of the Mew family, Chin Yuchen always believed in this. Even after knowing that Mew Mew is actually a man, Chin Yuchen still thinks that this is not something unacceptable. And later, a major bidding case of his company was leaked. When Chin Yuchen wanted to use his own funds to save it, he discovered that the weak lover who was protected by him had already connected with his opponent and sent the property was transferred cleanly. What was the final result? Chin Yuchen narrowed his eyes. The final result was that he was kicked out of the house, and seeing his lover and enemy get intimate and beautiful, he encountered an accident in the anger of being betrayed. But who would have thought that he would have a chance to do it all over again? He came back from the future to the present. Now that he has just married Mew Mew, all the bad things have not happened yet, and there is still time to break up and settle accounts slowly. Chin Yuchen clenched Lian Wu's hand into a fist, almost bleeding. The bouncing light yellow figure still looks gentle and lovely. But he just felt cold. The scorching sun at noon in July does not seem to convey the slightest warmth. Chin Yuchen touched the marriage certificate in his pocket through the fabric, raised his free left hand, and looked at the ring on his ring finger. The diamonds on the ring sparkle magnificently in the sunlight. He took off the diamond ring expressionlessly, stuffed it into his pocket, and walked towards the figure. Mew Mew rehearsed in his mind how he should file for divorce with Chin Yuchen. If it was the sweet Chin Yuchen in the photo, then he would be a ruthless and capricious scumbag and coldly announce that he wants to divorce him. If it was the reborn blackened Chin Yuchen, then he would cry and beg him for a divorce. I hope Chin Yuchen will not be ignorant of flattery. When Mew Mew had mastered the pair of wet shoes on his feet and was confident that he would not sprain his feet when he walked, he heard someone calling him. Mew Mew. Mew Mew turned his head subconsciously. He saw the big boy with a happy face in the photo at a glance. It's just that now he has a sinister expression, and when his eyes met, Chin Yuchen twitched the corners of his mouth at him, showing a sinister smirk that wished he could eat his blood and flesh. Mew Mew's legs softened. It's over, it's over, it's over. This is probably the one that was reborn. Yes, if it's the one who came back from rebirth, does he know that Mew Mew is actually a man's business? Mew Mew trembled in his heart. Damn, the author didn't write it. The author abandoned the pit without writing it. I hate it. Mew Mew's legs were weak and he almost choked up. Chin Yuchen. Mew Mew is a dead house. He couldn't keep up with his nutrition since he was a child. He was thin, and he looked like a boy and a girl. The voice change period seemed to have abandoned him, making his voice always neutral. These things caused him to be teased from junior high school to college, which made him always dislike face-to-face conversations. And even today, when his voice is low and his speech is slow, he still looks very girly. Qin Yuchen approached, looking down at this harmless liar. Qin Yuchen is 1.89 meters tall. Miu Miu is shorter than him, at 1.73 meters, even if he wears 3 cm wet shoes, he is still a head shorter than Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen stood in front of Miu Miu, blocking the sunlight, and easily brought Miu Miu into his shadow. He watched Miu Miu look up at him. The neck tied with a necklace was slender and graceful, like a swan ready to kill, as if he could easily cut off this beautiful and fragile neck as long as he stretched out his hand. Miu Miu felt a chill rushing up, and his neck was chilly. He couldn't help taking a small step back. His voice was like a mosquito, that. I have an immature idea. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who showed a helpless expression, and pulled the corner of his mouth stiffly. What? Miu Miu took a deep breath, trembling. Let's get a divorce. It is not advisable to marry impulsively. If you leave, hello, me, hello, everyone. Miu Miu looked at Qin Yuchen nervously. That's right, in the original text, Miu Miu and Qin Yuchen fell in love and got married in a flash. If the divorce is finalized, a flash away can be added. That sounds really awesome, Miu Miu thought. The honest op service of red and green books, service to the end, neat and tidy, will give you a different life experience. Qin Yuchen's already stiff expression became even stiffer, and he stared at Miu Miu without blinking. After a while, he spoke with a hoarse voice, You want to divorce me? Miu Miu nodded frantically. This is not the same as before. Qin Yuchen recalled. Miu Miu never mentioned divorce to him, nor did he call him Qin Yuchen. He always only calls him by his first name, Yuchen or Mr. Qin. Which play is this playing now? Qin Yuchen stared down at Miu Miu. Maybe it was the emotions and expressions he showed now that made Miu Miu feel that something was wrong, Qin Yuchen guessed. Otherwise, how could this little liar who has been lurking by his side for several years easily say the word divorce? Rather alert, Qin Yuchen thought. But yes. If the liar is not sensitive, he will be seen through long ago. Thinking of this, Qin Yuchen let out a breath, looked coldly at the liar in front of him, and twitched the corners of his mouth perfunctorily. We just got married half an hour ago. Miu Miu cautiously, then leave while it's hot. Qin Yuchen. Miu Miu stretched out a hand to test cautiously, You. If you don't speak, I'll take it as your agreement, hey. Qin Yuchen stared at Miu Miu. He didn't speak. Miu Miu was very anxious. He held Qin Yuchen's sleeve with his outstretched hand, picked up the bag on the rest chair with the other hand, and immediately ordered to buy and sell by force. Let's go. Divorce. Qin Yuchen simply followed his strength and walked forward, fixed his eyes on Miu Miu, wanting to see what kind of medicine was sold in this man's gourd. Miu Miu hurriedly dragged Qin Yuchen into the Civil Affairs Bureau, and staggered a few times because he was not used to wet shoes. Qin Yuchen didn't intend to help. He took Miu Miu's every move into his eyes, with a cold expression. The Civil Affairs Bureau is very empty, and it seems that there are not many people coming to handle business today. Miu Miu's eyes were darkened about marriage and divorce, and he rushed to the window bravely, and put the marriage certificate in his hand and the set of documents found in his bag to the window. Hello, let's get a divorce. The lady at the window looked at them in astonishment. She remembered that half an hour ago, the two had just stamped their marriage certificate. It is true that the young lady who has never seen this kind of development speed was stunned for 2 seconds before subconsciously answering, Sorry, please queue up for divorce first. Miu Miu. Divorce? Q lottery? Miu Miu felt his brain being rubbed hard again. Miu Miu turned his head and glanced at Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen snorted lightly, with an expression of I'd like to see what you're doing. Miu Miu. Wow, I am so wronged. Miu Miu turned his head back, with a calm expression and a trembling voice, Mama, please give me a number, I will queue. Sorry, we are fully booked for the next 2 months, and now we can only make an appointment for divorce. Miu Miu? Ah? You fucking be sick. Miu Miu has made thousands of calculations, but she never realized that the biggest obstacle to her divorce comes from the Civil Affairs Bureau. Who the wouldn't say good job after reading this? Unconceived and useless roads have been added. Miu Miu stood stupidly in front of the window, and after a moment, asked in a low voice, can you accommodate me a little bit? This. The young lady at the window shook her head in embarrassment, and then lowered her voice, the rules are like this, and I can't help it. Miu Miu was about to speak again. Qin Yuchen reached out and knocked on the table. Miu Miu closed his mouth. Qin Yuchen looked Miu Miu up and down. There was still anxiety and helplessness on the liar's face, and he tilted his head slightly, not looking at him. Perhaps not dare. Qin Yuchen thought casually. In all fairness, Miu Miu looks really good looking. It's not the kind of Minjian that plunges into people's hearts at first glance, but the kind of sweetness that can't help but laugh along with him when he smiles. But now Qin Yuchen has no intention of appreciating it. He was full of malice, thinking about whether to strip the face of this liar in public, and spread it out in the sun. Qin Yuchen narrowed his eyes, thinking of Miu Miu's clumsy running and jumping just now. He had been married to Miu Miu for 4 years, and he remembered that his wife had been in poor health, so he stayed with her for 4 years in a platonic marriage. Don't even think about how difficult this is for a man who is both mentally and physically normal. Qin Yuchen used to be willing to be considerate of each other, but now looking back, he just finds it extremely ridiculous. Qin Yuchen's mind was filled with 4 years of memories, and he really couldn't remember Miu Miu's initial appearance. But he could tell that Miu Miu was not used to wearing high heels at this time. If it was him in the past, he would probably only think that this clumsiness is also extraordinarily cute, and then tell Miu Miu that if he is uncomfortable, don't force himself to wear high heels. Qin Yuchen opened the corner of his mouth and said sarcastically, are you used to wearing shoes? Miu Miu didn't react, and replied blankly, hey? Still, okay. Miu Miu's bewilderment caused the sarcasm on Qin Yuchen's face to stagnate, subconsciously restrained a little, and then his face darkened when he realized that his heart was soft. He remembered something bad. Those memories that should have been warm and wonderful, now only make people feel chilling under the naked truth revealed today. The timid and weak person in front of him had already betrayed him. Their love and marriage was a scam from the very beginning, a scam planned by Miu Miu for another person. Qin Yuchen closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and collected himself. Miu Miu paid attention to Qin Yuchen's reaction, feeling panicked. He didn't know what the original image of Miu Miu should be, and he was afraid that something was wrong. The author didn't spend much ink on the role of Miu Miu. The male frequency is cool, the focus must be on the protagonist. In addition, the author focused all the coolness of the article on his career, so that after the entire article, there were hardly a few girls with names. Miu Miu only remembered that at the very beginning of this article, the wife who mentioned the male protagonist was once a very gentle and kind girl. Good guy. Gentle and kind. What is a gentle and kind girl like? Miu Miu's mind went blank. He is really not smart, and he doesn't like to socialize. He even takes orders through the internet, and then does manual work by himself. Don't talk about what a gentle and kind girl is like. Even ordinary girls, Miu Miu didn't get in touch with a few of them in depth, and even seldom chatted, let alone playing a gentle and kind girl. Miu Miu only felt dizzy. And does Qin Yuchen know now that his wife is a man? Wait. Miu Miu found a blind spot. He remembered that before his rebirth, Qin Yuchen had been married to the original owner for nearly 4 years. For 4 years, if Qin Yuchen still doesn't know that his wife is a man, doesn't that mean Qin Yuchen didn't he applaud? Miu Miu was stunned by the truth he deduced, and was extremely shocked. Oh my god! Author! It seems that your son doesn't seem to work. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who was in a daze, and asked impatiently, what's the reason? Miu Miu came back to his senses. Hey? What? Qin Yuchen, the reason for the divorce. As soon as the topic of divorce was mentioned, Miu Miu immediately became energetic. I just think it's too fast, he whispered, observing Qin Yuchen's expression. Qin Yuchen scoffed lightly, you asked for the marriage, it's too soon to say it now. Miu Miu. It is so. Miu Miu was stunned for a moment, and said kindly, I'm very sorry, I regret it. Qin Yuchen realized that this little liar seemed impatient to get rid of him. Although he didn't understand why, and he didn't remember it, but he didn't want to do what Miu Miu wanted. I don't agree. Miu Miu couldn't figure it out, why? Qin Yuchen just looked at him with folded arms and didn't speak. Miu Miu thought about it and found a possible key in his poor social knowledge. He suddenly said, I just want a divorce. I don't want anything from you. I can leave the house without leaving the house. Hearing what he said, Qin Yuchen's expression distorted for a moment when he thought of the property that had been transferred cleanly before his rebirth. He looked at Miu Miu, and he didn't want to do what he wanted more and more. I don't agree. Miu Miu. What should I do in this situation? Miu Miu started to scratch. You can try to convince me with better reasons. Qin Yuchen reached out to take away the certificate on the table, waved it in front of Miu Miu's eyes, and looked down at Miu Miu, who was a head shorter than him. Or if you please me more, maybe I will agree as soon as I am happy. Miu Miu's hand holding the bag tightened suddenly, his scalp numb. He remembered this line. Qin Yuchen also said it to the original Miu Miu. It was said to the original owner who came to intercede after Qin Yuchen raped his opponent. Pleasing me, maybe I'll let him go as soon as I'm happy. Then what? Then the buddy who planted grass above Qin Yuchen with the original owner crashed the plane when he was leaving the country on the private plane arranged by the original owner. It fell into the vast sea, and even the body was not found. Miu Miu. Start to get scared. When I read the article at that time, I obviously only felt cool. Hateful. Can such a thing really happen in a contemporary society ruled by law? Author, can you speak some logic? Miu Miu almost choked up. Qin Yuchen was too lazy to stay here anymore, stuffed the bag of lotus mist that he had been carrying all the time into Miu Miu's arms, turned around and left the Civil Affairs Bureau. Miu Miu stayed where he was and did not follow. This is not nonsense. They're all married, so most of them live together, so it's silly to keep up. Although the certificate was taken away, having a mobile phone can temporarily solve part of the problem, and maybe there is an electronic ID card, so the problem is even smaller. Miu Miu hugged Lian Yu, carrying the bag with the mobile phone, and looked at Qin Yuchen's back anxiously, praying that the other party would leave without looking back. But Qin Yuchen was not going to let him go. At the moment when he was about to step out of the gate of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Qin Yuchen paused and turned to look at Miu Miu, who was still inside. Not going. I really don't want to leave. Miu Miu felt bitter in his heart. You can do it, I'm just an innocent passerby who got involved, and I don't deserve your attention. Miu Miu raised his foot with tears in his eyes, and the ant moved away. The window lady, who had been watching them from behind, tapped lightly on the table. Miu Miu immediately turned to look at her as if she had been pardoned. Miss Window lowered her voice, Sisters, have you been tricked by a scumbag? Miu Miu choked on the sister. The young lady at the window showed a bit of indignation, I heard it all just now. What did you say to please him? It wasn't like this when you first came to get married. Did he reveal his true colors just by getting a certificate? Miu Miu was taken aback, and explained, No, it's just that I wanted to leave unilaterally, and I didn't have anything to do with him. Sister, don't worry, I have made an appointment for you here, and I will notify you as soon as possible. Miu Miu got stuck and quickly closed his mouth to explain. Qin Yuchen leaned against the door frame of the Civil Affairs Bureau, crossed his arms, and urged impatiently, "Hurry up." Miu Miu looked at Qin Yuchen, who had been blamed for being a scumbag in the blink of an eye, and sincerely bowed to him to express his apology, and then boldly walked to Qin Yuchen's side. Seeing him following, Qin Yuchen turned around and left without saying much. Miu Miu followed behind Qin Yuchen, not daring to take an extra step. Laughing to death, "I dare not walk around at all." Miu Miu's eyes were blank. He didn't know which car Qin Yuchen had, or he didn't drive at all today. His eyes were darkened, he couldn't see his fingers, and he didn't even know where he lived. If you find the wrong car or the wrong door, wouldn't it be directly exposed and given on the spot? Miu Miu felt that whether it was the option of let Qin Yuchen find out that Miu Miu is not the Black Widow herself, or the option of let Qin Yuchen think that Miu Miu is still the Black Widow herself, it was not a good choice. But the result of the latter is still predictable, while the former is a completely unknown path. Compared with the two, it is safer to maintain the status quo. Miu Miu hugged the bag of lotus mist, and followed Qin Yuchen step by step. In a car, Miu Miu, who didn't know anything about the car, had a sullen face. After looking at it for a long time, he couldn't tell what brand it was. Qin Yuchen touched his belt and found that the car keys were not on his body. He turned his head and stretched out his hand, the key. Miu Miu looked at the hand stretched out in front of his eyes, raised his eyes, and looked at Qin Yuchen for 2 seconds, then opened the bag belatedly. Then Miu Miu looked at the 2 keychains in the bag, and felt a little bit in his heart. Damn, why are there 2 strings? Miu Miu, who has never touched the driver's seat and is not preparing for the driver's license test, wants to cry but has no tears. Help! If I take out the wrong key, will I be killed on the spot? Miu Miu's whole body froze. What are you dawdling about? Qin Yuchen frowned, feeling that this person was extraordinarily stupid today. He directly reached out, took out his car keys from the muumuu bag, and sat in the driver's seat. Miu Miu hesitated for a moment between the co-pilot and the back seat, and opened the back seat door to show his firmness in the divorce. Qin Yuchen paused slightly, feeling a little uncomfortable with Miu Miu sitting in the back seat of the car. He frowned, and glanced at the bag of lotus mist put aside by Miu Miu. This is Miu Miu's favorite fruit. When he came back from rebirth, he was carrying this bag of lotus mist, apparently bought it for that liar. Qin Yuchen suddenly felt like a lump in his throat. He sullenly said, "Would you like Lian Wu?" Miu Miu. Miu Miu turned to look at the bag of lotus mist. He doesn't like to eat this. Miu Miu's taste is very strong, and the fruit of Lian Wu is too weak for him. What did Qin Yuchen purposely mention this for? Miu Miu hesitated. Now he only feels that every movement of Qin Yuchen seems to be a precursor to the dark shark. The fate of the green hat partner crashing the plane is vivid in my memory. Miu Miu has no hope for the legal awareness of the protagonist in the silly author's works. Qin Yuchen looked at him through the rear-view mirror. It's been washed. Miu Miu. It's not a question of washing or not. Miu Miu suspected that the lotus mist was flawed. For example, it was poisoned, or it was poisoned, or it was poisoned or something. Although in the original text, the original owner Go reached the late stage of Qin Yuchen's career, but who knows whether it was because the original host was smart, or because Qin Yuchen hadn't planned to kill him from the beginning. Miu Miu is very self-aware of himself, he must not have the brains and means of the original owner. Miu Miu was extremely alert and said cautiously, "Can't eat, I have no appetite." Oh! Qin Yuchen withdrew his gaze and started the car expressionlessly. The car was so quiet that you could hear a needle drop. Miu Miu stared out of the window, his toes were so nervous that he was afraid that Qin Yuchen would suddenly hand over the delivery proposition, and he was even more afraid that Qin Yuchen would make a detour and send him directly to the wilderness to be buried on the spot. Woo! Miu Miu choked up. Fuck you. I'm just an innocent nerd, why should I go through this? But fortunately, the car had been heading towards the bustling area, and the bustle around made Miu Miu relax a lot. A traffic light intersection. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who was leaning against the window in a daze through the rear-view mirror, and found that the other party was frowning slightly, as if he was distressed by something. The blackout glass cannot block the sunshine of the coastal city, and the pair of eyelashes fluttering under the light fall under the eyes, printing hazy shadows, like a butterfly struggling to flap its wings, fragile and beautiful. Qin Yuchen subconsciously softened his voice, "What are you thinking?" As soon as he finished speaking, his face turned green. Miu Miu was slightly startled, and recovered from his daze. When he looked up, he saw Qin Yuchen's miserable green face in the rear-view mirror. It is estimated that he was disgusted enough by his inertial concern. Miu Miu. So divorce is not enough, don't force yourself if you don't like it. I beg you to pursue freedom, and let me live by the way, won't you? Miu Miu had never seen someone who harmed others and benefited himself like Qin Yuchen. Pretty boy is speechless. Qin Yuchen's face was sullen, and he didn't say anything more. He didn't say anything, but Miu Miu breathed a sigh of relief. Miu Miu really didn't know how to deal with this sudden incident. He felt that such a short time of less than an hour had drained his wits. There are a lot of things in his mind, and the question that occupies 90% of his thinking space is whether he can go back. I always feel like there's very little hope. Fortunately, he has been alone for many years, at least he will not let others worry about him. For the time being, I can find some comfort from this point. Miu Miu was thinking wildly, picking at the skirt on her body with her fingertips, and frowning. The car slowly drove into the underground parking lot. Miu Miu glanced at the sign hanging in the parking lot. Linjiang Yupan Pavilion. Miu Miu tried his best to dig out a little bit of thread from his memory. Linjiang Yupan Pavilion in Z City is a high-end residential area located in a corner of the central business district of Z City. The entire residential area is a small 6-story Western-style building, with 2 elevators and 1 household forming a separate floor. Miu Miu remembered that Qin Yuchen's career had just started, and he had just entered the business circle of City Z. This apartment in the city center was bought with gritted teeth because I was going to get married, so it is not top-notch. In the text, the first decision Qin Yuchen made after his rebirth was to sell the apartment here and build a low-rent apartment to stuff the original owner, whom he hated so much. And the decision to sell this apartment also brought Qin Yuchen his first loyal younger brother. It is also the only character that Miu Miu is confident to recognize at a glance because this buddy has orange-eared hair, the kind that can be dyed regularly every month. Aside from these incidental things, this is not a top-notch community, but it is already very high-end in Miu Miu's eyes. He has never been to such a high-end neighborhood in his life. But at the thought of fighting wits and courage with Qin Yuchen under the same roof in the future, Miu Miu didn't have the joy and freshness of coming to the world of the rich, but felt suffocated for a while. Damn it, haunted houses are not so exciting. Miu Miu sat in the parked car, clenched the bag in his arms, like a penguin separated from the flock, stiff and dazed, at a loss. He could only look up at Qin Yuchen, who was sitting motionless in the driver's seat. Miu Miu stared eagerly. If Qin Yuchen didn't take the lead, he didn't know how to continue acting. Qin Yuchen looked at the bewildered Miu Miu in the rearview mirror with a cold face. The frost on Qin Yuchen's face almost solidified. He was tired of the innocent look the liar always put on in front of him. He just felt sick. It was so disgusting that he couldn't bear just thinking about being in the same room next time. Get out of the car, Qin Yuchen said coldly. Miu Miu took the bag of lotus mist, obediently got out of the car with the bag, and then stood by the car, waiting for Qin Yuchen to get out of the car too, so that he could follow him to find a place to live. Miu Miu cheered up 120,000 points, ready to face the next storm. But who knew that Qin Yuchen didn't get out of the car at all, but kicked the gas pedal, and drove away without turning back. Miu Miu stared at the buttocks of Qin Yuchen's car heading straight for the exit, and was stunned. Go, go! Miu Miu was stunned for a moment, then slowly looked away, the corners of his mouth curled up, his brows beaming with joy. There are such good things in the world. Miu Miu was ecstatic. Miu Miu stood there for a while, making sure that Qin Yuchen had really left and never came back. His whole body shook, and suddenly he felt that his waist was no longer sore and his legs were no longer hurting, and even his wedge heels seemed to be getting stronger. As long as there is no Qin Yuchen by his side, Miu Miu feels that there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. No, it's better to say that without Qin Yuchen, everything becomes easier. Miu Miu carried the bag of Lian Wu, who frightened him no matter what he looked at, found a trash can and threw it in, then lowered his head and took out his cell phone. Thanks to high technology, thanks to fingerprint unlocking, Miu Miu unlocked the phone, and found Doubao among a bunch of dazzling apps. None of contemporary young people can escape the claws of online shopping. Miu Miu quickly turned to the delivery address. No 0306, Linjiang Yupin Pavilion, Binhai Street, Jinwu District, Z City, G Province. Miu Miu doesn't quite remember the details of this suite, maybe he forgot it, or maybe the author didn't write it down. He could only silently recite the mobile phone number of the recipient, while looking for the entrance that might be 0306. Generally speaking, when people park, they should subconsciously park at the place closest to their destination. When they go home, they must go straight to the parking space. It should not be difficult to find it. Sure enough, Miu Miu quickly found the nearest elevator entrance, and there were 3 entrances written on it. It seems that 0306 should refer to the 6th floor of the 3 buildings. Miu Miu stopped in front of the anti-theft door outside the elevator entrance, was stunned for a moment, lowered his head and flipped through his bag, and took out the bunch of car keys left in the bag, only to find that there were only the door opening button and start key of the car on the car keychain. It doesn't look like an anti-theft door key. Miu Miu. Numb. He carefully rummaged through his bag again, and found something that was probably a key card, but there was no functional area for swiping cards on the anti-theft door. Miu Miu looked at the anti-theft door in front of him and choked. Unexpected difficulties arose. Miu Miu was standing in front of the door with her bag in her hand, feeling that the soles of her feet were aching from being tortured by the wedge heels. Those girls who can wear high heels without changing their face are really gods. Miu Miu stood in front of the anti-theft door for a moment, took a deep breath, held the mobile phone, and after confirming that the payment password was also a fingerprint, he began to search for the electronic ID card. After all, the original owner is a daring liar, and he has made a lot of preparations, including all the electronic documents in the applet. Very good, this at least means that it is really bad, he can still stay in a hotel. Miu Miu heaved a sigh of relief, and began to study the surrounding area. If possible, of course he still hopes to search in the house without Qin Yuchen, at least to confirm what is going on with him now. Miu Miu searched, and finally found a hidden switch panel on the door. He reached out and pressed it, and the hidden panel opened, revealing the face recognition system behind it. Miu Miu. What's wrong with having to hide this thing? Miu Miu clenched his fists. He tried to shake in front of the surveillance head, and the anti-theft door opened in response. Thanks tech. Miu Miu looked at the opened anti-theft door and was very moved. He almost wanted to kowtow to the scientific giant who made face recognition. Miu Miu walked into the elevator room, took out the key card, and looked at the illuminated button for the 6th floor, and let out a long sigh of relief. All in all, still came in. Although it was much more difficult than imagined, it came in anyway. It's a good thing to come in. Miu Miu was thinking, when he heard the ding sound of the elevator arriving, he raised his head. The elevator door opens to the entrance. Miu Miu took off the torment on his feet, looked at the same style of pink and blue rabbit sandals in the entrance, and was silent for a long time, then turned his head and opened the shoe cabinet to try to find guest sandals. But no, maybe it's not ready to entertain guests. Mew Mew wrinkled his face, put on the pair of pink bunny sandals, and wanted to engrave the 4 characters of "Bear the burden of humiliation" on his legs. I have never worn such girly slippers in my life. A new life, a new experience. While thinking, Mew Mew explored the house that was too big for him. Unexpectedly, the decoration is a very warm log country style, about 300 square meters, 4 bedrooms and 2 living rooms, spacious and bright, and an open-air balcony with stairs leading to the attached roof garden. Mew Mew stood in the living room and took a look outside. The terrace outside was full of flowers and plants, full of greenery and sporadic flowers. Mew Mew was slightly stunned. He didn't find the original owner, but he still took care of the flowers and plants. It was impossible for Qin Yuchen to take care of these things. He was fighting for his career outside every day. No matter how he looked at it, he didn't have the time to take care of the flowers and plants. Very good, Mew Mew thought. He and the original owner had a common hobby. But Mew Mew didn't have time to appreciate those green plants now. He apologized to the 2 original owners of the house in his heart, and began to explore the room. 4 rooms, the master bedroom, the guest bedroom, the study room, and the audio-visual room. At first glance, it is prepared for the couple to live a sweet and happy life. There is no nanny room or parents' room at all. There is a closet between the master bedroom and the guest bedroom. Mew Mew looked down at the skirt on her body, hesitated for a moment, walked into the cloakroom, and saw herself in the mirror. The person in the mirror has thick, long, and straight black hair, with the tips slightly curled inwards, and the naturally upturned corners of his lips make him seem to be smiling all the time. The bright yellow ribbon necklace on the neck conceals the inconspicuous Adam's apple, and the 3/4 sleeve lace dress of the same color outlines the curves of the figure exquisitely. Mew Mew. Ling and Ling Long. Mew Mew raised his hand and touched his chest, his pupils trembled. He quickly opened the closet and saw a few brand new home clothes with tags hanging on them. Mew Mew clenched his fists tightly. Damn it! Is this the rich man? The clothes I bought were hung up without even cutting the tag. Mew Mew picks up a hanging tag sourly and glances at the price. His expression froze. He puts it down quickly, turns his head and takes a large size t-shirt and beach pants that should be relatively cheap, and then goes into the bathroom. Putting on and taking off the side-waist zipper skirt is not a problem for Mew Mew. Ai's job is to accept private handmade customization. In order to make a meal, he dabbles in handicrafts ranging from felt paper carving lamps to doll clothes making model customization, and he can also eat the money for uploading videos of the production process. Mew Mew has encountered many clients with strange requirements, and a skirt with a zipper on the side waist is not difficult for him at all. Joke. What kind of battle has Ben as I not seen? Mew Mew looked up confidently, seeing the silicone hanging on his chest, his expression blanked instantly. Grass. I have never seen this battle. Mew Mew looked at the fake breast in his hand blankly, feeling that he was dirty from body to heart. He couldn't help but began to savor carefully, why did the original owner hang on for so long? With this fake breast? With this face? Or is it not possible with Qin Yuchen? No matter how you think about it, it's all because of Qin Yuchen, right? This will be easily exposed if it is rolled once. If it is not for Qin Yuchen, there is no way to explain it. Mew Mew looked in the mirror and wiped his face. Although he doesn't like his very feminine face, he has always known that he is not bad looking, and he belongs to the type of if this face is on a girl, she can be a classmate no matter what. Still unmoved by his wife with such a face, Qin Yuchen must have some hidden disease. No wonder the author never writes about male leads pushing girls. God! Qin Yuchen, you are so miserable. Mew Mew expressed 120,000 concerns about this. He sighed, and suddenly felt that he was not so miserable anymore. He put down the fake breast in his hand, took off his skirt, and saw an old scar running across his thigh. Hey? Why is there such a scar on this body? Miu Miu was stunned. Before being surrounded by children and laughing at his appearance, Miu Miu used to be a happy monkey jumping up and down. At that time, there were parallel bars in the yard where I lived, but the protection measures were not well done. The scar on Miu Miu's leg was caused by falling down while playing on the parallel bars. This scar has been with him for almost 20 years, and he can see it every day when he changes clothes and takes a shower. Miu Miu touched the scar on his leg, and felt that the texture was exactly the same as his own scar. Miu Miu frowned and put on beach pants to cover the scar on her thigh. Strange. Could it be that Miu Miu here also broke his leg playing on the parallel bars when he was a child? Miu Miu couldn't guess. He glanced at a box of hair ties in the wash cabinet, tied his hair in a strange way, picked up the false and hesitated for a long time, just in case, with a painful face on his face, he put them on again like a torture. The moment I took the initiative to put on this thing, something seemed to leave me. Miu Miu put on the t-shirt with a detached expression on his face, carrying a weight that shouldn't have been on his back, and turned his head and pulled the slippers to find the phone. He hoped that there would be some useful information stored in the phone, but he searched and searched, but couldn't find any unusual news from the phone that looked like a serious person. The contacts in the address book and social software are all remarked as Mr. X, Ms. X or just names. There are no notes from my parents, and the chat history is unbelievably clean. Miu Miu sat on the sofa and flipped through all kinds of apps, but he didn't find a fart. 2. To deceive the male protagonist into a liar, no matter how you think about it, there will be no simple flaws in the phone. Maybe even the phone number is new. After all, people can even fake the gender on the ID card, and even use this to trick Qin Yuchen into the grave of marriage. Miu Miu sat cross-legged on the sofa, lost in thought. In the original text, the author did not spend any pen and ink on Miu Miu's family and interpersonal relationships. Probably the author realized that the readers of the rebirth article were impatient to read the content of the protagonist being abused before the rebirth, so the beginning of the article was the plot of Qin Yuchen selling the wedding house. Miu Miu put down the phone, looking sad. From the current situation, it seems that he is still before the start of the plot, or Qin Yuchen has already gone to sell the house after he just abandoned him. Miu Miu knew that Qin Yuchen himself had another place to go. In the original text, after Qin Yuchen stuffed the original owner into the low-rent house, he didn't live there himself, that is, he went to the original owner every now and then to punch in a card in front of the original owner to feel his presence. Qin Yuchen has a self-built house on the outskirts of the city, which was left by his adoptive parents. Miu Miu recalled the plot, and felt that in this world, who knows Qin Yuchen best, he would be the second, and no one would dare to recognize Qin Yuchen as the first. Qin Yuchen's life before his rebirth was full of ups and downs. He was born in an orphanage and was adopted by a very ordinary working family. He spent a peaceful and happy childhood. He is smart, good at reading, and very independent and assertive. He belongs to the kind of academic master who won various competition awards, but all these good things ended in the summer vacation when he finished the college entrance examination. When he was traveling with his adoptive parents, he encountered a landslide. Qin Yuchen had a stomachache and didn't climb the mountain that day. He was lucky enough to escape the disaster, but his adoptive parents died in the accident. However, he was raised very well, and he didn't just get up after a setback. He still worked hard to make a difference, rebuilt a happy family, and had the beautiful wife and marriage he dreamed of. Who knew that it was sniped by the original owner? Grass. You are miserable, Qin Yuchen. Miu Miu substituted himself, thinking that he would be blackened if it were him. It's normal to have ups and downs in the trajectory of life, but it's like a roller coaster in a series of circles, which can make people crazy. Miu Miu sighed. He put down the phone that didn't give any information, and was going to search the study and bedroom. The original owner was so bold that Bao Tiancheng was able to kill Qin Yuchen once, so he should have prepared himself a way out. It's time to try to catch the leak. Mew Mew stood up and began to rummage through the boxes. The original owner has a family, and the family background should be pretty good, because the plot written by the author happened to be stuck in Qin Yuchen, and he found a business tycoon with the surname of Mew who looked exactly like him. The youngest son is called Mew Mew. The author clicked to break the chapter here, leaving a sentence civet cat for Prince to catch readers, without mentioning Qin Yuchen's attitude towards this matter at all. Then the book review area climaxed, and it started to rush, and then the author quit his job and became a eunuch. As a result, Mew Mew is now confused and trembling. He doesn't know whether Qin Yuchen knows that the original owner is a man, or whether Qin Yuchen knows that the original owner accidentally stole his life. It was painful. Mew Mew searched through the bedside table and bay window cabinet in the master bedroom, but found nothing worth studying. He sighed and turned his head into the study. The study room is different from the warmth outside, it is a very serious business style, and the bookcases occupying the entire wall are full of tomes that Mew Mew can't understand at all. It seems that it should be purely used by Qin Yuchen. Mew Mew hesitated for a moment, then stepped into the study and rummaged through the bookcases and desk drawers. It wasn't long before Qin Yuchen started his business at this time, but there were many messy documents and contracts. Mew Mew couldn't understand those contract items, but the number and weight of these document bags alone were enough to prove Qin Yuchen's ability. Mew Mew rummaged through it carefully, and out of fear of affecting Qin Yuchen's thoughts on doing things, he carefully restored the place he had turned over. The search results are still nothing. Mew Mew heaved a sigh of relief, stared blankly in the living room for a long time, and threw himself into the sofa in a desperate manner. Give up, bored to death, destroy it. Mew Mew turned over, buried his head in the pillow, collapsed within 2 seconds, another carp stood up straight, dropped the pillow, and walked into the kitchen. Hungry? Let's look around carefully when you are full. Mew Mew opened the refrigerator. Let's rest in the guest bedroom tonight, and play by ear tomorrow. Qin Yuchen was sitting in a street cafe, looking at the neon lights flickering in the night. His eyes were gloomy. The more he thought about it, the more wrong he became. Why is he leaving? Because disgusting. But no matter how you think about it, he shouldn't be leaving, right? That was the house he bought, his name was on the real estate certificate, and Mew Mew simply moved in with his bags. No matter how you think about it, it should be Mew Mew who should get out, not him. With a cold face, Qin Yuchen drank all the coffee in the cup in one go, took a deep breath, paid the bill, and prepared to go back to settle accounts with that little liar. Marriage cannot be divorced. The more Mew Mew wants to leave, the more he will not leave. Anyway, whether it's marriage or divorce, he won't lose money if he is on guard against Mew Mew. But the little liar must be in a hurry. Qin Yuchen sat in the driver's seat and started the car expressionlessly. Mew Mew lay on the bed in the guest room and sighed while holding the mobile phone. He just thought about it and found that the app in this world was no different from his original world. But there is no other Mew Mew in this world. He managed to get the 4-diamond Dobeo store gone, and the video account that could earn some money for grocery shopping also disappeared, and he couldn't figure out what Mew Mew's original source of income was. However, there are 320,000 yuan in the bank card balance, so it will take a long time to save money. But he can't always spend the money in the original owner's account. In case, he was able to go back, it didn't seem very kind to leave the original owner with a dumbfounded face in front of the account with less money. Although the original owner is not a kind person. But Mew Mew feels that just because the other party is a bad person, he can't do things that make himself a bad person. I don't know how long he has to stay here, and he has to find a way to make money. And if you can never go back, then you need to work hard. In addition, the issue of background had to be resolved. After thinking about it, as I realized that he really didn't know anything, and he was only good at manual work and video editing. In fact, it's okay, From another perspective, if the order is received through the internet, if he leaves, it seems that the original owner will not be affected too much. Miu Miu put down the phone, hugged the quilt and rolled on the bed, rubbing the soft quilt. The bed smells nice, the aroma of cold pine wood. Miu Miu tidied up the messy situation, and didn't hear the door closing. The porch is lit. Miu Miu used to live in a small house with 2 bedrooms, 1 living room and 1 bathroom. He developed the habit of keeping a night light on so that he wouldn't bump into the wall when he wakes up in a daze to pee at night. When Qin Yuchen got out of the elevator, he saw the light left in the entrance, and was stunned for a moment. Miu Miu never left a light on before, saying that he couldn't sleep if there was light, so that even the curtains in the master bedroom were heavy blackout curtains. Qin Yuchen put the elevator card on the entrance cabinet, glanced at the remaining blue bunny sandals in the entrance, opened the shoe cabinet but did not find another pair. He frowned, entered the room barefoot, and went straight to the master bedroom. The master bedroom door was wide open, and it was empty inside. Qin Yuchen turned his head and glanced at the closed study room and guest bedroom door, his brows furrowed even tighter. He walked over to the guest bedroom and opened the door. The bright light inside the door poured down, and the sleepy person on the bed who was holding the quilt and staring in a daze suddenly shrank back, as if stunned, and looked up at him while holding the quilt. A pair of cat eyes widened. Qin Yuchen stared at Miu Miu, his eyes swept over the clothes on his body and the slippers on the ground, his face became darker and darker. The crook is now in his room, lying on his bed, in his clothes and his slippers. Qin Yuchen's lips moved, and his anger was almost solidified. What are you doing? Miu Miu flinched instinctively, cautiously. Sleep, sleep. Qin Yuchen's words were almost squeezed out word by word. In my room. Miu Miu, Sigma? Qin Yuchen's room? Wait, isn't this the guest bedroom? My clothes, my slippers. Miu Miu's mind went blank. Ah! Qin Yuchen looked like an enraged lion. This is my bed. Miu Miu grabbed a thread from his messy mind. Help, help! I found something amazing. A man with a wife and Qin Yuchen actually slept in his home. Guest. Lying. Under the extreme panic, Miu Miu still couldn't help showing some pity and sympathy for Qin Yuchen. It seems that Qin Yuchen really has hidden illness. The author has something to say. The real Iron Man, pink bunny sandals false women's boss, wearing fake is like a punishment. There are some people who, under extreme circumstances, will burst out with potential that they don't usually have. But it is a pity that Miu Miu does not belong to that group of people. He belongs to the hobmeat that you dare to scold, I dare to cry, and you dare to touch me directly. Except when surfing the internet, if you really can't do anything, you will be number 1. Miu Miu looked at Qin Yuchen, who had the word angry written all over his body and hair, and sat up silently from the bed. Ha ha ha, I laughed so hard that I didn't dare to speak at all. Miu Miu panicked, pursed her lips and lowered her eyes, without saying a word. How do you say it? When you don't know what to do, just lower your head and avoid your eyes, indicating that you don't have the desire to fight. Although this sentence seems to come from a strange wilderness survival program, Miu Miu feels that it is very suitable for the current situation. After all, it was Qin Yuchen standing opposite him. Laughing to death, no one really expects the hero of the male frequency cool article to have basic legal training, right? No, 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 no. Human beings without legal restraint are beasts. Is this a problem? No. So it is very reasonable to use the skills of survival in the wilderness to deal with Qin Yuchen. Miu Miu stood up barefoot, looked down at her toes on the ground, carefully raised her eyes to look at Qin Yuchen, then looked away instantly, her scalp numb. It doesn't matter whether the tough guy wears pink bunny sandals, or whether Qin Yuchen actually sleeps in his own home, it's not worth mentioning at this moment. Because Qin Yuchen looked like he was going to eat people. Woo woo woo. I deliberately avoided the master bedroom and did not rest in the master bedroom because I was afraid that this kind of thing would happen. In the end, it was all Qin Yuchen's fault that he slept in his own house. Who would have thought of this? It was simply unthinkable. I am obviously the most innocent victim. Miu Miu was about to cry, he lowered his head, curling up his toes in grief. Qin Yuchen looked coldly at the liar in the room who hung his head and said nothing. He was wearing a t-shirt and beach shorts that were too bulky for him, making him extra slender and fragile. The loosely tied long hair leaked a few unruly strands due to the slight bow of the owner's head, and the ends of the hair fell on the collarbone, making people feel a little itchy when they looked at it. Again. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who was showing a weak and harmless posture in front of his eyes, his fingertips curled up, and even the veins on his forehead were throbbing. Every time, he was deceived by the innocence shown by the other party, retreating again and again, and finally got nothing. He has already suffered such a loss, and he will not soften his heart again. Miu Miu could almost hear Qin Yuchen's breathing. He felt like a sinner who had been put on the guillotine. The severe dragon's head was hanging high, and he couldn't fall off. The executioner, Qin Yuchen, was playing with the huge axe that was used to cut off the reins in his hand, admiring the sinner's fear before the death penalty came. Damn it! Can the heart not be so dirty? Just be more straightforward if you are a man. Miu Miu couldn't take it anymore, and thought that stretching out his head and retracting his head would be a stab anyway, so why don't he scold the executioner a few words, and die early and be reborn early? He summoned up the courage to raise his head, met Qin Yuchen's gaze, and instantly retracted his courage, which was not as big as a fingernail. The light was not turned on in the living room. Qin Yuchen stood at the door of the room, not at all favored by the bright lights in the room. The whole person was trapped in the spreading darkness, staring at him emotionlessly. Grass is horrible. He looked like a ghost who came to claim his life in the middle of the night. Qin Yuchen's refusal to act in a horror film is simply a huge loss to the industry. Miu Miu instantly tightened his hand holding the phone, thinking in horror that if Qin Yuchen really violently hurt someone, he would not have time to call the police when the other party rushed over. If he survives by chance, he must go to Longhe Mountain to worship and drive away evil spirits. Qin Yuchen raised his hand to hold the twitching forehead, and took a deep breath. Miu Miu was taken aback by his sudden movement, and stared round at Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen said coldly, "Get out." Miu Miu. What? That's it? There is such a good thing? Miu Miu is incredible. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu's astonished expression, and repeated, "Get lost." Miu Miu almost laughed out loud. He stopped laughing for a moment, and lowered his head with his lips tightly pressed, afraid of exposing his joy to Qin Yuchen's eyes. Barefoot, he quickly walked to the door, carefully bypassing Qin Yuchen, and went straight to the door with extremely brisk steps. Qin Yuchen's anger paused, and he subconsciously asked, "Where are you going?" Miu Miu was taken aback for a moment, stopped, turned his head and pointed to the door, and said softly, "Go out." "Didn't you let me out?" Qin Yuchen stared at Miu Miu, feeling that his anger had been blocked, and his emotions were not coherent. He didn't even think that there was such a solution to this question. A normal person's understanding should be to get out of the room, right? Miu Miu was stared at by Qin Yuchen, and finally realized that he seemed to be wrong. Miu Miu. Miu Miu silently withdrew her foot towards the door, and under Qin Yuchen's gaze, slipped into the master bedroom in desperation. In order to prevent being caught by dark sharks in the middle of the night, Miu Miu directly locked the door and even put the lock on the door as soon as he entered. I don't know why there is an anti-theft lock in the master bedroom at home. It looks suspicious no matter how you look at it. Qin Yuchen didn't feel anything wrong before? Incredible. Miu Mujin washed his feet cleanly, feeling a bit wrong. He came in without slippers. Miu Miu stood on tiptoe, glanced at the mirror, and moved wildly to support the false chest. "Fortunately, I put it on just in case," otherwise Chin Yuchen would have to watch his Gup's wife turn into a plane in a second, and the psychological shadow would be more happy. That was really grotesque. Azai, who quickly regained his optimism when the alarm was lifted, patted his fake happily. Good boobs. Grateful to you. He thought so, and in the next second he mercilessly left his good chest brother in the bathroom, and climbed onto the bed on tiptoe. The bed in the master bedroom is different from the bed in the guest bedroom. This bed is unbelievably soft and skin-friendly, and it doesn't look like a Simmons mattress when you sleep on it. But Miu Miu felt uncomfortable when lying down. He likes to sleep on a hardboard bed, and at most put a cotton mattress on it. The guest bedroom is a hardboard bed, and he is very used to sleeping on it. Miu Miu twisted and twisted on the bed, not getting used to sleeping. He frowned and lifted the sheet. There were 11 layers of sheets under the sheets, the bottom layer was a cotton mattress, and Miu Miu stretched out his hand to touch the upper layers, and showed a blank expression that shocked me on the spot. Good guy, the silk quilt is used as a quilt and has 10 layers of cushions. Are you the contemporary Princess and the Pea? Is this the life of the rich? Miu Miu froze on the bed, and planted a towering lemon tree on the spot. Chin Yuchen stayed at the door of the guest bedroom. He heard the sound of Miu Miu locking the door, turned his head to glance at the closed bedroom door, and looked away without any surprise. In the past, Miu Miu had to be locked up when sleeping, and the excuse he used was still being afraid and unable to sleep. It seems unreasonable now, but when a person has a filter for a certain object, no matter how nonsense that person says, he will take it for granted. Chin Yuchen now realizes that something is wrong, but he is too lazy to pursue it for the time being. There is still a lot of time in the future. He got a chance to be reborn, and he used it all to confront a liar. It was too embarrassing for the other party. Thinking of this, Chin Yuchen turned his head and turned on the light in the study. The biggest advantage of rebirth is the control of the future. He can use this advantage to avoid the pitfalls that he stepped on in the past, so that he can climb up faster. Chin Yuchen sat on the office chair and began to familiarize himself with the existing resources and business. He didn't have any impression of the furnishings in his study a few years ago, so he didn't notice that Miu Miu had come in to look in the study. However, the study room should be equipped with a monitoring system, and it will be installed tomorrow. Chin Yuchen thought casually. Miu Miu, who had no idea that he had escaped several calamities, was still sitting on the bed wondering whether he should take off a few layers of quilts to let him sleep well. People's physique cannot be generalized, and Miu Miu is the kind of person who is not used to sleeping on soft beds and high pillows. On the one hand, he felt that it was a pity that such a luxury opportunity was so rare that he did not sleep. On the other hand, he felt that he would be sore when he slept on such a soft bed tomorrow. In the end, the impulse to experience the life of the rich overwhelmed reason, and Miu Miu quickly retreated into the quilt. Before going to bed, he took his mobile phone and stayed on the page of the alarm clock, lost in thought. Miu Miu is a household with difficulty getting up, but he feels that it is necessary to consider getting up early for his own life and health. Of course it's not such a perfunctory reason to go to bed early and get up early. But Miu Miu thinks that a gentle and kind girl should get up early to make breakfast for her husband/boyfriend, right? Although he himself will definitely not let his wife/girlfriend get up early and work hard. After all, he judges others by himself. As a household who has difficulty getting up, how dare he ask others to get up early to make breakfast for him? But Miu Miu here should get up early to make breakfast for Chin Yuchen, right? Miu Miu hugged the quilt, and struggled for a full 20 minutes between defying the power and sticking to bed and acting yourself wronged, and finally set the alarm clock for 7 o'clock the next morning with tears in his eyes. Although the commuting time of the migrant workers may cause them to get up for breakfast after 6 o'clock, getting up at 7 o'clock is Miu Miu's last stubbornness. He hasn't woken up before 7 since high school. 7 o'clock is the bottom line. If Chin Yuchen has to wake up after 6 o'clock, then let him kill me. I won't get up if I'm a shark. Miu Miu's expression was extremely firm, and then in the next 10 minutes, he silently added an alarm clock at 6:30. Life is still important. After setting the alarm clock, Miu Miu closed his eyes and fell asleep on the spot. The lights in the study stayed on all night. Miu Miu was woken up by the alarm clock at 6:30, and was so sleepy that his soul was out of his body, his eyes were blind, and his whole body was sore as expected. Until he dawdled until 7 o'clock, when he finished washing and tidying up and opened the door, he didn't hear Qin Yuchen get up. Miu Miu was wearing a pink-blue jumpsuit found in the cloakroom, and instinctively lightened his footsteps when he passed the study room, although there was no sound of footsteps when he stepped on the ground with bare feet. Qin Yuchen fell asleep lying on the desk. The files on the desk were a bit messy, and the computer screen had gone to sleep. The ceiling lamp in the study and the lamp on the desk were still on. The excessive light made the person lying on the desk frown even when he was sleeping. It seems that the processing work fell asleep, and has been asleep for a while. Miu Miu stood at the door of the study and looked at Qin Yuchen, and was stunned for a while. I didn't feel much through words before, but when I think about it carefully, Qin Yuchen is really miserable in all aspects. Whether it is before or after rebirth, he seems to have nothing that can be called a friend people. In the author's eyes, there are only career and face slapping, and he has no arrangement for dating, and there is no daily content. Every plot is either upgrading or on the way of upgrading, as if career is the whole life of the protagonist. It's unimaginable for a mediocre salty fish like Miu Miu. But Miu Miu stepped on the carpet in the study, and tiptoedly turned off the desk lamp and the light in the study for Qin Yuchen. But he has no position to sympathize with others now after all. Qin Yuchen must miss him very much now. Miu Miu sighed in his heart, turned his head and walked out of the study lightly, and closed the door of the study, concealing it. When fully closed, the sound of the latch closing may wake a light sleeper. Miu Miu didn't want Qin Yuchen to wake up so early, the longer the free time, the better. Azai doesn't want to fight wits and courage with the hero. Miu Miu walked towards the kitchen. If you haven't slept well, eat something that is easy to swallow and digest, such as porridge or something. I remember when I looked through the refrigerator and kitchen yesterday, there seemed to be millet. It is best to boil some brown sugar water. Qin Yuchen slept on his stomach in the air-conditioned room all night wearing short-sleeved sleeves, and there was a high possibility of catching a cold. Miu Miu is an old man who lives alone, and knows all these details of life clearly. Miu Miu didn't see that the moment he left the study, Qin Yuchen, who was lying on his stomach, opened his eyes, staring at the half-covered door, with an uncertain expression on his face. Miu Miu went to the door to put on slippers, and cooked a pot of millet porridge with the ready-made ingredients. Seeing that Qin Yuchen hadn't come out yet, he thought that the brother might not have woken up yet, so he simply went to the terrace where he hadn't seen it well yesterday. As soon as the balcony door is opened, there is a scent of gardenias oncoming. Miu Miu looked at the 4 gardenias by the door. They were in flowering season, and the white flowers were blooming beautifully and brilliantly, and they seemed to be well raised. Looking outside, there are pomegranates, roses, hydrangeas, sunflowers. City Z is hot in summer, and many plants need to be watered every day in this environment, and some of them need to be moved every morning and evening to follow the sun. Miu Miu likes to tinker with these things when he has nothing to do. He wandered around the terrace and the roof garden, and as expected, he found a hose and a pot for watering. It's a pity that these plants are gone, Miu Miu thought regretfully while watering them. Qin Yuchen should sell this apartment soon and put him in a low-rent housing. Miu Miu doesn't care much about living in low-rent housing. Azai can live anywhere, and he can take care of himself wherever he is. When the time comes to earn some money by working part-time, as long as Qin Yuchen doesn't kill them all, he can survive no matter what. But these green plants are really a pity. It is estimated that when the house is sold, these plants will also be sold as a bonus. The next owner of the house is one of Qin Yuchen's younger brothers, and he probably doesn't know much about taking care of plants. These green plants will probably end up belching in the end. Rarely raised so well. Mew Mew touched the succulents on the wrought iron frame, swept the water accumulated on the terrace to the drain, looked at the rising sun, put down the broom, looked up and saw Qin Yuchen standing in the living room watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows. With him. I don't know how long I stared at it. Mew Mew was terrified. Grass. Mew Mew collapsed. This man is really like a ghost. No, strictly speaking, Qin Yuchen died once, so it doesn't seem to be a problem to say that he is a ghost. Is this gentleman really not considering a career in horror films? The downturn in the domestic horror film market may be due to the lack of your dusty gem. Mew Mew stood on the balcony, her heart was beating fast, and she didn't dare to take a step into the house for a long while. Qin Yuchen looked at Mew Mew who was standing on the balcony, shivering, not daring to enter the house, and smelled the sweet fragrance of millet porridge on the tip of his nose. His eyes turned to the kitchen. This is really strange. In the past, Mew Mew never touched the spring water with his 10 fingers, not to mention cooking for the family and watering the green plants, and he never even took the initiative to reach out for housework. But Qin Yuchen doesn't like to hire a nanny. The family education he has always received is that doing housework together is a way to bond with the family. After all, in contemporary society, both sides of the family are generally very busy. Being able to have a meal together a day, and cooperate to do some housework together after a meal, watch TV, and chat, are the only family activities left. In Qin Yuchen's impression, Mew Mew was handsome at the beginning, but later, with the rapid advancement of technology, things like sweeping robots and dishwashers quickly occupied the place of housework at home. In the end, what they need to do by themselves is only cooking and taking care of green plants. Of course, at that time, he was considerate of Mew Mew's poor health, and Qin Yuchen did all these tasks by himself. Can Mew Mew know how to cook? Does Mew Mew know how to take care of these green plants? Will Mew Mew gently come to help turn off the lights when he falls asleep in the study? Even with 4 years of marriage, when Qin Yuchen was thinking about these two questions, he couldn't give a clear answer. But now it seems that Mew Mew can do it. It's just that he never knew before or was never qualified to experience the other party's care. Qin Yuchen pulled the corner of his mouth mockingly, and walked towards the restaurant expressionlessly. Standing under the sun, Mew Mew took a deep breath, feeling that he had absorbed enough yang energy, and then re-entered the underworld where Qin Yuchen existed. It's too miserable, Mew Mew. Azai expressed sympathy for himself, and then walked into the restaurant. Qin Yuchen was serving porridge in the kitchen. Mew Mew stood in the restaurant and compared the distance between the restaurant, the room, and the gate, and dared not go in. Laughing to death, no one really dares to go in, no, 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 no. There are knives in the kitchen. Although Qin Yuchen never did it himself in the original text, who can say for sure about this kind of thing? Don't underestimate men's concern for cuckolds. Qin Yuchen turned his head to look at Mew Mew who was standing in the restaurant, and gave him a smirk. You want to divorce me so much? Mew Mew withdrew his gaze from looking for the escape route, and asked in a daze. Why did such a deadly option suddenly appear? Not enough. Qin Yuchen walked out of the kitchen and stopped in front of Mew Mew. Mew Mew. Mew Mew glanced at the porridge in Qin Yuchen's hand, and recalled the portion of the porridge he cooked. Not enough? Wow, Qin Yuchen has a big appetite. Is this the food intake of an iron hunk? Qin Yuchen looked down at Mew Mew. Just work harder to please me. Mew Mew's eyes fluttered. Cough, it wasn't about the weight of porridge. Work harder to please me. Qin Yuchen repeated, with a smile on his face, I'll consider divorce. Mew Mew. Mew Mew was stunned. What? What's good? Wake up early and make a meal to please? Oh my god, what kind of life did Qin Yuchen live in the past? Miu Miu almost couldn't control his spontaneous pity and love. Hateful. Qin Yuchen is so miserable that I don't know where to take this drama. Miu Miu lowered his head, tried his best to suppress his almost out-of-control expression, and whispered, Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who looked timid and cowering on the surface but was still determined to get a divorce, and there was no wavering in his heart. It's over if your emotions are led by the nose by this person, Qin Yuchen thought. It's just a trick of retreating to advance and playing hard to get. Qin Yuchen returned to his expressionless face, sat down at the dining table, and drank the porridge quietly. He would like to see how much this little liar still doesn't know. Miu Miu slipped into the kitchen and turned to look at Qin Yuchen, who was sitting upright in the dining room. As expected of a serious male protagonist, he always straightens his chest and back when he eats in his own home, which is totally different from Azai, who doesn't sit still. Mumu has the habit of eating eggs for breakfast, whether it is boiled eggs or poached eggs, regardless of the method. In short, he must eat an egg. Sitting in the dining room was a tiger that could eat people. Miu Miu didn't want to go out to eat at the same table with him. It can be delayed for a while, just to make an egg. Miu Miu opened the refrigerator and took out an egg. Then he hesitated for a while, and took another egg and a piece of ginger. It can be seen that Qin Yuchen and the original owner are still living a good life at present, otherwise the ingredients in the refrigerator would not be so rich. Miu Miu thought about it, and took out brown sugar, wolfberry, and red dates from the locker. Cut the into pieces, put it into the pot with the rest of the ingredients, cover and turn on high heat, and cook for 10 minutes. During the period, 2 boiled eggs were also done. Qin Yuchen was drinking porridge, his eyes were unconsciously attracted by the noise of the kitchen. The sunshine makes the room covered with gold, and in the peaceful morning, you can hear the birdsong outside the window, intertwined with the sound of pots and bowls colliding, full of human fireworks that make people feel soft all over. This sound makes people unconsciously think of beautiful images such as home, companionship, and love. This is a rare sight for Qin Yuchen. In the past, he had always knocked on the door of the master bedroom to wake up Miu Miu after he had dealt with everything. He had never seen Miu Miu so skillfully and busy in the kitchen. It is also rare to see Miu Miu in such a hurry with his fluffy hair on his head. But Qin Yuchen failed to draw much warmth from this scene. After experiencing betrayal, it is only ironic to see this scene now. Qin Yuchen looked away and took a sip of porridge. Miu Miu didn't notice Qin Yuchen's gaze at all. He separated the 2 hot-boiled eggs, put them into 2 bowls filled with cold water, turned off the fire, and poured out the brown sugar and water. Miu Miu came out of the kitchen with an egg and a bowl of brown sugar and water, and put both bowls in front of Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen looked up at him. Brown sugar water. Miu Miu said dryly, you slept in the study last night to prevent a cold. After he finished speaking, before Qin Yuchen could speak, he turned and went back to the kitchen. Qin Yuchen looked at the bowl of brown sugar water with neither a good nor a bad expression. Cold and indifferent, people can't see the emotion. Miu Miu came out with his bowl of porridge and eggs, and found that Qin Yuchen had finished his porridge and was taking a spoonful of brown sugar and water to his mouth. Miu Miu looked at the 8-seater rectangular dining table in the dining room, avoided the position opposite Qin Yuchen, and sat down in the corner farthest from him. Qin Yuchen didn't respond. Miu Miu took out the boiled eggs, and while peeling them, he hoped that Qin Yuchen would keep his mouth shut until he went to work. Entrepreneurship, it must be very busy, and there may not be any free time on weekends, let alone today is a working day. Prania. Miu Miu is a very serious and responsible cook. His mother set an example, taught by ear, cooked as much rice as he ate, and would rather cook less than waste it. As a result, Miu Miu was especially immersed and serious when eating. Qin Yuchen's eyes fell on Miu Miu's hands peeling eggs. His fingers were slender and fair, with well-defined joints. To describe it more vividly, they were a pair of hands that were very suitable for playing the piano. In Qin Yuchen's memory, Mew Mew has always avoided doing housework if he can. This liar always has one or another excuse to soften his heart and make him willingly do those things for him. So Mew Mew's hands have always been as delicate and smooth as a baby's. But now, although he could not see his hands clearly from a distance, they were translucently white under the gentle morning sun, and the fire of the wedding ring on his hands fell on his fingers, making them unbelievably beautiful. Qin Yuchen looked away. Azai didn't know at all. He often does housework and handicrafts, and there are many small scars and calluses on his hands, but these blemishes do not appear hideous on a pair of very beautiful hands, but have another kind of beauty. He was used to these things, so he felt that the original owner's hands should be like this. As long as they often do housework, hands should probably be like this. Azai, who doesn't understand the world of rich people, thinks so for granted. Mew Mew ate the eggs, and because Qin Yuchen had no other emergencies, he happily drank the porridge. After Qin Yuchen finished drinking the brown sugar water, a thin layer of sweat broke out on his forehead because of the hot soup. He put down the bowl and spoon, tapped the table with his fingertips, and made two da-da sounds. Mew Mew held the bowl and looked up vigilantly. For a moment, Qin Yuchen felt that he saw a squirrel holding a pine cone to guard against natural enemies. Mew Mew put down the bowl. Qin Yuchen asked, "What's the arrangement for today?" Mew Mew. Mew Mew was shocked. The question was so random that he didn't know how to answer it. What arrangement? Who arranges? What to arrange? How? Could it be that the original owner was also working as Qin Yuchen's secretary? Thinking about it this way seems to make sense. If you don't participate in the business, you won't be able to transfer the other party's property completely. It can't be that Qin Yuchen is so stupid that he trusts the original owner to the point where all bank cards and asset materials are handed over, right? That must be something that only a peerless good man can do. The alarm in Mew Mew's mind rang woo-la-la. Ruined. He didn't know Qin Yuchen's daily schedule at all. There is no record of such a thing in the original owner's mobile phone. Not to mention the schedule, even the original owner's bills have been turned forward for half a year, and there is no salary income at all. Mew Mew froze on the spot, frantically recalling the contents of the memo on the original owner's mobile phone. Hateful. No. Absolutely not. The author didn't mention this setting at all. Qin Yuchen looked at Mew Mew, who was stunned, and chuckled lightly. He had never asked about Mew Mew before, and he gave all his purest trust to the other party. Whether it was assets or life, he gave the other party the maximum freedom. The results of it? In the end, he just became a clown who was fooled around. Look at Mew Mew's reaction. As a legal husband, Mew Mew was so surprised when he just asked about the other party's arrangements for today, which is enough to see how outrageous his previous connivance was. Qin Yuchen had no expression on his face. He tapped on the table again and asked, "What are your plans for today?" He added the subject this time, and Mew Mew breathed a sigh of relief instantly. He just said that the original owner's bill has no salary income at all. It should be said that he doesn't even have a record of entry, so he should have no job. Mew Mew said, "Get ready to go." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Get ready to go shopping." Qin Yuchen noticed his momentary pause, and couldn't help but groan in his heart, mocking his former self even more. "Look, Qin Yuchen, this liar has been deceiving you so early." Seeing that Qin Yuchen no longer asked questions, Mew Mew relaxed and continued to cook. He was going to go shopping around today to get acquainted with the environment and find out if there was a flea market by the way. But the goal of the flea market is too clear. Mew Mew was afraid that it would not match the original owner's personality, so he changed his words when he was on the verge of speaking. Azai, who thought he coped perfectly, finished his porridge and found that Qin Yuchen had left the restaurant to take a shower at some point. And he even washed his tableware and put it on the dish rack before he left. Mew Mew was stunned for a moment, then quickly finished washing the dishes and went back to the room. Mew Mew didn't know what was wrong with the original owner. Almost all of the cloakrooms were full of skirts, and most of them were the tightly wrapped half-sleeved ladies' long skirts. Maybe it's because I'm afraid of exposing the fake and Xiao Mu Mu. But that being the case, why not go for a simple t-shirt and jeans? Azai simply could not understand. When he was facing the cloakroom and lost in thought, Miu Miu heard the ding sound of the elevator. Qin Yuchen went out. Facing a wardrobe full of skirts, Miu Miu helped his fake and sighed. There's no other way, let's get dressed first, and then go out to a fast-moving clothing store and get some cheap and simple clothes. Miu Miu took a half-sleeved beige dress, looked at the messy hair in the mirror, combed it for a long time, and found that the bangs on the forehead were really rebellious. Miu Miu looked at the crooked bangs in the mirror, turned his head and took out his mobile phone to ask for help from the internet. When Miu Miu followed the air bangs tutorial in the little blue book, researched and understood the use of the props on the dressing table, and took care of the bangs, 2 hours had passed. Miu Miu held the iron bangs spray in his hand, looked at himself in the mirror, and was in awe of all the beautiful girls. Oh my god! Being a beauty is too hard. Thinking about it this way, the original owner really paid a lot to deceive Qin Yuchen. Just relying on the beauty, skincare, and hairdressing appliances of this dressing table, Miu Miu deeply felt that Qin Yuchen was really not wronged by the original owner. It can't be blamed on Qin Yuchen's bad brain, it's really because the enemy is trying too hard. Miu Miu sighed. He cleared the dresser and touched his neck. His Adam's apple is not obvious, but he can still see the ups and downs when he looks up. Although some girls also have a relatively obvious Adam's apple, but out of a guilty conscience, Miu Miu went to the jewelry cabinet to find a necklace of the same color. Just look at the dazzling array of necklaces in the jewelry cabinet, and the original owner is quite guilty. Miu Miu glanced at the wedding ring on his hand, worried about losing it by accident, so he simply took it off and put it in the ring box on the dressing table. He took the mobile phone, touched his waist, found that there was no pocket, and froze for a moment, then turned to the cloakroom to get the bag. Oh shit! Is this the girl's world? It's terrifying to have to make so many preparations before going out. Miu Miu was carrying the bag, looking out the window at the sun that could no longer be called the morning sun. Suddenly he was very glad that he was a man. It's so hard, being a girl is too hard. The difficulty of changing your life with another gender has increased several times in an instant. Miu Miu's happiness lasted until he opened the shoe cabinet and tried to find a pair of flat shoes. I'm lucky ass. It is I who suffers like this now. Miu Miu took out yesterday's wedge sandals with a dull face. Who would have thought that this would be the lowest pair in the entire shoe cabinet? Damn, women's clothing to this extent is already a kind of sickness. Miu Miu cursed and put on his shoes and went out. He was going to learn about the prices in this world, and make some preliminary preparations for leaving Qin Yuchen and the original identity of the original owner in the future. To rent a house, to eat, to buy tools. Some basic tools for manual work are not expensive, and you can go to the second-hand market to find some cheap old things, repolish and modify them, and they can be used as the first batch of goods. What is really expensive is the promotion fee spent to open up the market. It was the first time for Miu Miu to start from scratch, so he didn't know much about it. But no matter how guilty you are, you have to bite the bullet and take the first step. Miu Miu turned on the mobile phone navigation and took the lead to the nearest shopping mall. He quickly bought a t-shirt and jeans, and a pair of flat sneakers, then turned around and took a peaked cap, and put on a mask. He was not the original owner. If he met someone whom the original owner knew came to say hello while strolling on the street, he could die on the spot. After Miu Miu changed her clothes, she put the previous clothes in the locker in the supermarket, walked around, got some points in her mind, searched the flea market in Z City, turned her head and went straight to the bus stop. Miu Miu simply looked around in the flea market, but didn't buy anything. Then, he set foot on his way home before the evening rush hour. Things in the flea market are very cheap. Compared with second-hand goods transactions on the internet, Miu Miu still trusts the tangible flea market more. Moreover, most of the stalls in the flea market are elderly people who have not been able to keep up with the times. Out of a certain secret kindness, Miu Miu is more willing to come to the flea market to buy things. Miu Miu got off the bus and went to the supermarket to get back the previous clothes. As soon as he got out of the shopping mall, he couldn't help but put his loose long hair aside. The temperature in City Z in July was too hot for him. A straight man who doesn't know how to tie his hair could only wear his hair, and his back was soaked with sweat. Miu Miu once again sighed for the hardships of the beauty, while looking down at the price recorded in the memo. He walked slowly along the shade of the trees. Miu Miu is a craftsman through and through. It is the group of people who are about to be shot to death on the beach by the wave of technology. But Qin Yuchen is different. Miu Miu remembers that Qin Yuchen's company focuses on AI development. At the beginning of the plot, it just passed the angel round. Although the scale is small, the development is stable. Miu Miu pulled off his mask, took off his hat, swept his face and entered the community. Hey, Qin Yuchen is the leader of the technological wave that is about to shoot him to death on the beach. Miu Miu sighed. He carried his bag and the paper bag for his clothes, and after walking 2 steps forward, he saw an orange-eared head fluttering in the wind. Miu Miu was taken aback for a moment, and quickly reacted. That orange-eared head, oh no! That person with an orange-eared head is Qin Yuchen's first and most capable younger brother, Lu Jiaoming. This buddy is a rich third generation, and his family is engaged in real estate. He met Qin Yuchen because of Lu Jiaoming's rebellious heart and came to live alone. One sold a house and the other bought a house. It didn't take long for Lu Jiaoming to give Qin Yuchen a large sum of investment, and then Qin Yuchen built an AI smart community for their family, which made Qin Yuchen's small company a hit, and Lu Jiaoming's family also made a lot of money bowl full. Miu Miu stood at the intersection, watching Lu Jiaoming idly following a man in a suit and leather shoes. The man in the suit and tie should be a real estate agent or real estate agent. Miu Miu was not surprised to see them walking towards Unit 3. It is estimated that Qin Yuchen is going to sell this suite, and it is no problem for the intermediary to bring clients to see the house. This is really wonderful. Miu Miu thought to himself. As soon as the apartment is sold, he should live in a low-rent apartment. By then, Qin Yuchen may not show up once a month. Isn't that just like the sea is wide and the fish are leaping, the sky is high and the birds are flying? Happiness came so suddenly, and there was no Qin Yuchen nearby, so Miu Miu laughed out loud on the spot. Miu Miu happily walked forward. When Lu Jiaoming and the man in the suit heard the sound of footsteps, they stopped and turned their heads, both stunned. Miu Miu was wearing a t-shirt with Pikachu printed on it, light blue cropped jeans, and white sneakers. His face was rosy after being exposed to the sun. When he came over, he walked briskly, with a smile on his face, his long black hair swaying with the wind, like a free elf, jumping happily with the wind. The carefree Lu Jiaoming subconsciously retracted his hooligan-like stance, and instantly straightened his back, showing the instinct of a straight man to stand up in front of a beautiful girl. Lu Jiaoming looked down at Miu Miu who was walking in front of him. Well, hi. Hello. Miu Miu, who was not ready to talk, was taken aback for a moment, and nodded with an uncontrollable smile. Hello. Are you the owner here? Lu Jiaoming asked. Miu Miu nodded again, thinking that I am not only the owner here, but also the owner of the house you are about to see, one of them. I'm here to see the apartment. Lu Jiaoming dryly continued to strike up a conversation. Unit 3, 5th floor. 5th floor. Miu Miu's happiness suddenly froze. Yes, the 5th floor. Miu Miu? Isn't it the 6th floor? Miu Miu hesitated. Could it be that it's time to see Qin Yuchen's house? Seeing the beautiful girl, Lu Jiaoming abandoned the agent next to him on the spot, and began to babble next to Miu Miu. You are the owner here, how long have you lived here? How do you like the living experience here? Miu Miu wondered how I would know what to do. But Qin Yuchen seems to have been living here before he was reborn, so it should be fine? Miu Miu answered the question cautiously while walking towards the entrance of the unit. Qin Yuchen has the experience of rebirth, and the efficiency of handling work is much faster. As the founder of the company, Qin Yuchen adjusted his strategy based on his understanding of the next few years after finishing the day's work. Then, between trying to contact new investors and going home, he chose the latter by accident. He parked the car and got into the elevator. The elevator stopped on the first floor. When Qin Yuchen raised his eyes, he saw a bright orange-eared head muttering, "Is the bag heavy? Let me carry it for you." He followed the other person's gaze and saw Miu Miu, who smiled and shook his head in rejection. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu's smile, looked at his unusual clothes, rosy face and empty fingers, and finally met Miu Miu, who walked into the elevator and turned his head to look over. The smile on Miu Miu's face disappeared instantly. He saw Qin Yuchen's eyes linger between him and Lu Jiaoming for a moment, and then let out a sneer like a sneer. "Miu Miu! Help, help! The author has something to say, Qin Yuchen, he loves me, firm." The scene was once very embarrassing. "Brother, listen to me. It's scary, it's really, really scary." Qin Yuchen's habit of appearing and disappearing is really suitable for making ghost movies. Miu Miu was so frightened that his brain was trembling. What was even more frightening was Qin Yuchen's expression of "You kid loves me," as if he was going to be a shark in the next second. "You have to find a way to deal with it." Qin Yuchen skipped over the startled Miu Miu and looked at Lu Jiaoming. He had a little impression of this orange-eared head. No way, this orange-eared head is really hard to forget. He remembered that this was an owner in the same community, who lived in the next building, and he could often see his orange-eared selfie profile picture appearing in the chat records of the owner group. When he has nothing to do, he likes to stroll around the community, looking for faults in the property, and with his own strength, he forcibly improves the living experience of the owners of the entire community. I thought that someone who is so good at finding fault should be more serious and serious, but I didn't expect the unexpected youthful air. Qin Yuchen has such an impression of Lu Jiaoming, but if he is familiar with him, he must be unfamiliar. Linjiang Yupin Pavilion has a total of 6 units, each unit has 6 floors, and 6 households have 2 elevators. Neighbors in the same building may not meet once or twice a month, let alone in the same community. Qin Yuchen withdrew his gaze and turned to Miu Miu, "You are back." Miu Miu was taken aback for a moment, pursed his lips and nodded, "Mm." He responded, walked into the elevator, stood beside Qin Yuchen, and combed the hair that fell between his arms uncomfortably. Miu Miu couldn't remember how long it had been since no one said this to him. He looked down at the toe of the shoe in a daze until Lu Jiaoming brought him back to his senses. Lu Jiaoming looked at Qin Yuchen and asked Miu Miu, "Who is this?" Miu Miu opened his mouth, stuck for 2 seconds, and replied with a blank face, my husband." Lu Jiaoming was taken aback. Hateful. The newly met beautiful girl actually married young. Qin Yuchen glanced at the absent-minded Miu Miu, and stretched out his hand to Lu Jiaoming, "I am Qin Yuchen, this is Miu Miu, may I ask your surname?" Lu Jiaoming was still lamenting that his sister was married, and stretched out his hand instinctively, "My auntie's surname is Lu, Lu Jiaoming, let's get to know each other, we may be neighbors in the future." Qin Yuchen showed a commercial smile, and had a conversation with Lu Jiaoming. Miu Miu really can't avoid this kind of interpersonal communication. The moment he realized that Lu Jiaoming still wanted to talk to him, he quickly turned his face to the side and looked at the mirror in the elevator. The girl in the mirror was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, with long black and beautiful hair, as young as a little sister who just entered college. Miu Miu, "Oh my god, it's so beautiful." Miu Miu looked at the beautiful younger sister in the mirror, and raised her hand to touch the bangs on her forehead. After being tossed for 2 hours this morning, the bangs were served by the iron bangs spray. Even though they were pressed by the peaked cap for a whole day, they still kept their proper shape without any distortion. Mew Mew put down his hands and couldn't help shaking his head. The few strands of bangs that were set in shape swayed, and their shape remained motionless. Niobe! Mew Mew admired. He looked at the mirror, and couldn't help but smile at the pretty sister in the mirror. When he saw the pretty sister smiling at him, he immediately felt sweet in his heart. Hi! Suddenly I didn't hate this face so much. Mew Mew changed his face slightly, and when he raised his eyes, he saw the other 3 tall and burly men in the elevator staring at him. Mew Mew, Sigma? Mew Mew froze. Qin Yuchen. Mew Mew turned his head silently, shrank towards the corner of the elevator, leaned against the wall and lowered his head. Worth. This is too embarrassing. Mew Mew wished he could find a crack in the ground and sneak in. If conditions allowed, he could even perform a show on the spot to dig the Qin Emperor's mausoleum with 100,000 terracotta warriors and horses. Qin Yuchen withdrew his gaze from Mew Mew, turned his head and found Lu Jiaoming was staring at Mew Mew, as if he only saw a dog hook with fleshy bones. Qin Yuchen instinctively looked at the mirror, glanced at the top of his head, and then looked away with a dark face. The elevator made a ding and reached the 5th floor. Lu Jiaoming looked at Mew Mew, who was leaning against the wall with his head lowered and hid his hands behind his back, smashed his mouth, turned his head and followed the intermediary into the house on the 5th floor. After the elevator door closed, Qin Yuchen looked at Mew Mew through the mirror. Do you know him? Mew Mew was still immersed in the embarrassment of being publicly executed for looking in the mirror. Hearing Qin Yuchen's question, he raised his head, thinking that the two would know each other later if he didn't say anything, so he simply shook his head. I don't know, I just met downstairs. Qin Yuchen was expressionless. I met you downstairs, do you want to help you get your bag? Yeah. Mew Mew nodded, what's wrong? Qin Yuchen. Mew Mew, hee hee. Did not expect it. Mew Mew is proud. He has already figured out how to deal with it during the embarrassment. As long as you use questions to answer questions, as long as you are confident enough, even a proposition can be easily resolved. As expected of the Lord. How could there be such a witty Azai in this world? Looking at Mew Mew's disapproving appearance, Qin Yuchen always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell for a while. The elevator door opened, and when the two entered the entrance to change their shoes, Qin Yuchen glanced at the paper bag Mew Mew was carrying, and found that the brand on the paper bag was a fast-selling brand, and Mew Mew was wearing clothes of this brand. Qin Yuchen frowned. He is very familiar with this brand. When his adoptive parents were still there, most of the wardrobes were of this brand. It was cheap, durable, and versatile. But for Mew Mew, this should be a brand that he would not even glance at on weekdays. More than clothes. Mew Mew hasn't put on any makeup or perfume today. Qin Yuchen paused. Strangeness. This is very abnormal. It seems that Mew Mew has been very strange since he filed for divorce. Qin Yuchen put on pink bunny sandals, staring at the back of Mew Mew, who went straight to the room after changing his shoes. These changes that were not in memory made Qin Yuchen extremely vigilant. When a liar behaves abnormally, either he is going to escape, or he should catch the net. No matter which one it is, Qin Yuchen can't make him happy. Qin Yuchen was carrying the computer bag, thinking of the newly bought surveillance head in the bag. He no longer hesitated, and walked into the house. Mew Mew took a rubber band and casually pulled up her hair. The experience of women's clothing on the first day was extremely bad. The long hair looked fairy-like, but it was so hot that people wanted to stick out their tongue like a dog, but the tongue became hotter when the sun shined on it. Mew Mew washed his face with cold water, and glanced at the time. It was almost 6 o'clock. The sweet and kind girl should now be making dinner for the guy who's been working hard all day. Mew Mew. I him. Pain mask. It's really hard being a girl. If he still has a chance to go back, he will definitely strangle the author's neck to make him delete the words gentle and kind, and replace the full text of the character Miu Miu's name with the author's own. Miu Miu took a deep breath, turned and walked out of the room. Qin Yuchen is in the study. Miu Miu knocked on the door, and after getting Qin Yuchen's answer, he probed in, "What do you want for dinner?" Qin Yuchen looked up at Miu Miu. He really didn't expect this to happen. It seemed that the little liar was really trying to divorce him. Miu Miu. Qin Yuchen settled down, "Anything you want?" Miu Miu responded and closed the door. The heat in midsummer is really depressing, lack of energy, and loss of appetite. Sweet and sour iced drinks and appetizers are especially popular at this time. Sweet and sour, appetizing. Miu Miu looked at the ingredients in the refrigerator, closed the refrigerator, and let out a long breath. "I have to go out and buy some food." Qin Yuchen was in the study, heard the sound of the elevator, walked to the door and took a look, and found that the elevator had already gone down. Seeing Miu Miu going out, Qin Yuchen rolled up his sleeves, walked around the study, and began to look for a suitable place to hide the camera and allow the entire study to be monitored. The purpose of that little liar is his assets, so he will definitely come to the study when he is not around. Qin Yuchen thought maliciously. After a while, when he got tired of Miu Miu's performance, he took the surveillance camera to report the crime. Even if the family had a background, it was enough for Miu Miu to drink a pot. Miu Miu came back with a bag of ingredients from the supermarket, and met Lu Jiaoming downstairs again. Lu Jiaoming drooped his shoulders and was talking to the agent. His eyes lit up when he saw Miu Miu, and he straightened his back in an instant. He greeted loudly, "Miu Miu." Miu Miu paused, nodded meaningfully, turned a corner on his toes, and prepared to avoid this orange-eared head. Lu Jiaoming leaned forward and wagged his tail, "We will be neighbors from now on." Miu Miu was taken aback, "What? I'm going to buy your downstairs apartment." Lu Jiaoming spread his palms, "Fifth floor." "Fifth floor?" Miu Miu was astonished. "Wait, why the fifth floor? Shouldn't you wait for Qin Yuchen to sell the house and buy the sixth floor?" Miu Miu didn't expect such an accident, so he froze on the spot. Lu Jiaoming nodded, "Yes, the fifth floor." Miu Miu came back to his senses and stumbled, "No, don't think about it again." Lu Jiaoming shook his head, "Don't think about it, there are only 2 houses listed for sale in this community, one is here on the 5th floor, and the other is in the building next door." Miu Miu? Qin Yuchen didn't sell the house? Miu Miu was stunned. Miu Miu split open. If Qin Yuchen didn't sell the house, wouldn't he have to face this ancestor day and night before he successfully divorced? Miu Miu didn't feel that he had the ability to get rid of Qin Yuchen at all. Just kidding, Qin Yuchen is the leading actor. Of course, this is still secondary, the key is that the plot has changed. Miu Miu's whole body froze. No, maybe it's not time to sell yet? What if Lu Jiaoming was very rich and bought the 5th floor, and then bought the 6th floor when Qin Yuchen sold the house? Miu Miu took a deep breath to calm down, nodded to Lu Jiaoming, and politely congratulated, "Congratulations to the homeowner, welcome." Hey, Lu Jiaoming smiled so much that his eyes narrowed, he touched his pocket and took out a crumpled business card, "This is my business card." "Thank you." Miu Miu subconsciously took the business card, really didn't know how to deal with this type, and immediately chose to leave. "I'm going home first, and I have to cook." Okay. Lu Jiaoming nodded again and again, and then stopped Miu Miu when he swept his face into the door, and asked, "Can I ask you if I have any questions later?" Miu Miu. "I don't think so. Because I probably have more questions than you." Miu Miu thought about it, shook his head very firmly and solemnly, turned his head and entered the unit door. Unexpectedly, Lu Jiaoming, who didn't expect to be rejected, froze in place, and suddenly turned his head to look at the agent beside him. "I was rejected." Lu Jioming was shocked. Am I ugly? Intermediary. Ugly is not ugly, even handsome. Lu Jioming seemed like the sky was falling. I was rejected. The intermediary was speechless. Lu Jioming's reaction was too obvious, or he didn't intend to hide it at all. This man almost showed his interest in other girls on his face. The agent couldn't help reminding, Mr. Lu, this lady is already married. I know. Lu Jioming didn't take it seriously, and even gestured excitedly, but she looks really good looking, and she's a small one, so cute. The intermediary hesitated to speak, but she is already married. Lu Jioming was puzzled. I know. After he finished speaking, he paused, suddenly realized, and slapped his thigh. Damn, you don't think I'm going to give Qin? What are you planting grass for? Intermediary. Isn't it dirty? Worldly. Lu Jioming scolded. I just appreciate all the good people and things. The intermediary was dubious. So. Lu Jioming nodded firmly, then stretched his long legs and pulled the agent out, yelling, let's go, hurry up and contact the original owner to sign the contract, the sooner the better, I want to live in tomorrow. The intermediary was staggered by him, and for the sake of money, he put on a strong smile. Qin Yuchen stood on the terrace, watching the farce downstairs that just ended. The first conversation could not be heard on the 6th floor, but Lu Jioming's unbelievable voice fell into Qin Yuchen's ears completely. He stared at the orange-eared back, and turned back to the study. Miu Miu walked into the entrance to change his shoes, put the ingredients in his hand into the kitchen, and glanced at the crumpled business card. On the business card is written Liuking Holdings Co., Limited, as well as Lu Jioming's name and contact information. Without hesitation, Miu Miu turned to look for Qin Yuchen. Now he can't wait for Qin Yuchen to hook up with Lu Jioming quickly. It's better for Qin Yuchen to sell the 6th floor before Lu Jioming buys the 5th floor, so as to avoid long nights and dreams. As long as Qin Yuchen sells this apartment, he can fly freely in the low-rent apartment. Miu Miu looks forward to the stars and the moon and looks forward to this day. Qin Yuchen. Miu Miu called Qin Yuchen's name unaccustomedly, and probed into the study. Qin Yuchen looked up at him. I met Lu Jioming downstairs just now, and he gave me a business card. Miu Miu said, shaking the business card, it's useless for me to hold this, do you need it? Qin Yuchen looked at the business card in Miu Miu's hand, not sure what Miu Miu's purpose was. Show loyalty? Sell benefits? Or try to remove his vigilance? Qin Yuchen stretched out his hand while guessing. Miu Miu walked into the study room, handed out the business card in his hand, and without looking at the study room, tightened his hair again, walked out without looking back, and went straight to the kitchen. Qin Yuchen looked down at the crumpled business card, glanced at the company name, turned on the computer and looked up the name Lu Jioming. While cooking, Miu Miu prayed that Qin Yuchen could hook up with Lu Jioming. He wished that now, right now, he would hold the heads of these two, let them be good friends hand in hand, and then buy a house and sell the house one by one, so as to return him a piece of freedom. I don't know if it's useful to beg the gods of the 18 roots now in a daze, but the matter has come to this point, and I can only be a dead horse as a living horse doctor. Miu Miu shouted the messy gods and Buddhas in his heart, while making minced meat melon and sweet and sour pork ribs, and served the tomato and egg soup on the table, and disassembled 2 sauced pig's trotters bought in the supermarket, exactly 1 for each person. Add another piece of boiled lettuce, all meat and vegetables are prepared, and the rain and dew are evenly dipped, all together. If you have a bad appetite in summer, you should eat dishes with strong flavors. Of course, you should also eat heavy-tasting dishes to appetize in winter. Let go of your belly and eat more vegetables to resist the cold. The heavy-mouthed party, Miu Miu, is justified. Dinner was not divided like in the morning, so Miu Miu had to sit opposite Qin Yuchen. When Qin Yuchen saw this table of dishes, his movements of sitting down froze for a moment. He remembered that Miu Miu had a light taste and preferred the original flavor of the ingredients, but contrary to Miu Miu, his taste was very strong. And the dishes on this table are almost all heavy flavors. Miu Miu would probably only drink some soup, plus that plate of boiled lettuce. Therefore, the rest are specially made for him to eat. The little liar worked really hard to please him. Thinking of this, Qin Yuchen stretched out his hand expressionlessly, and before he picked up the bowl, he saw Miu Miu's chopsticks poked on the sauced pig's trotter. Qin Yuchen! Something is wrong. Qin Yuchen looked up at Miu Miu. Miu Miu regretted it after poking the pig's trotter. He looked at the pig's trotters in the bowl, and began to think seriously about the proposition how to gnaw off a roasted pig's trotters gracefully. I always feel that the original owner can lie to Qin Yuchen for so long, his image must be very perfect. I probably don't know how to do anything like eating barbecue at a food stall, eating spicy food with a swollen mouth, or eating chicken feet and pig's trotters in the street. So here comes the problem. How to get rid of this trotter while maintaining elegance? Miu Miu frowned as he looked at the sauced pig's feet in the bowl. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who was staring at the pig's trotters like an enemy for a while, and looked away. He is overthinking. No matter how you look at it, this little liar is just trying to cater to his taste and please him. Qin Yuchen picked up a chopstick of sweet and sour pork ribs, and said to Miu Miu, who was still studying pig's trotters, Lu Jiaoming is Lu Qing's grandson. Miu Miu looked up blankly. Qin Yuchen reminded, that Lu Qing who is known as the king of province Ji. Miu Miu didn't know why Qin Yuchen told him this, but when the male protagonist spoke, even if he didn't understand the situation, he met Qin Yuchen's eyes and nodded meaningfully. Qin Yuchen observed Miu Miu's expression, and after realizing that there was nothing on his face except dazed and confused, he looked away and asked, "What did you just say down there? If you want to talk about this, I will be crazy." Miu Miu sat up straight and hinted frantically, he said he wanted to buy a house on the 5th floor. Qin Yuchen nodded, and then, "Miu Miu? What's the matter with you, little brother? Are you not selling your house? Don't you think it's a pity to miss this customer?" Miu Miu was anxious, and continued to hint, he seems to have made a decision on the spot. "It's a customer who gives money very neatly and generously, aren't you tempted?" And then, Qin Yuchen nodded again, he waited for Miu Miu to mention the topic related to rejection. Before he was reborn, Miu Miu had nothing to do with Lu Jiaoming on the surface, but who actually knew? Qin Yuchen wanted to know what exactly Miu Miu rejected just now. Miu Miu looked at Qin Yuchen, who was not in a hurry, and the spirit that had just been cheered up a little bit, then it was gone. Qin Yuchen saw that Miu Miu stopped talking, and looked up, only to find that the plate of boiled lettuce hadn't even moved, but the sweet and sour pork ribs and winter melon with minced meat were about to be liquidated. Qin Yuchen ate with chopsticks. Did he eat so many dishes just now? Qin Yuchen glanced at Miu Miu's bowl, which was full of thick fat, obviously eating a lot of meat and vegetables. Qin Yuchen's eyes turned between the dish and Miu Miu. No, as expected, there is still something wrong. Miu Miu has the habit of liquidating. Seeing that Qin Yuchen didn't seem to touch the lettuce, he simply moved the lettuce plate in front of him, and sent over the remaining meat and vegetables. Although he doesn't like to eat green vegetables, but don't waste food. It doesn't matter, after eating the lettuce, he still has roasted pig's trotters that he temporarily put aside because he couldn't eat it gracefully as a reward. Miu Miu comforted himself and gnawed on the lettuce firmly. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu eating food in silence, his brows were slightly raised. Overwhelmed? After eating, Qin Yuchen took the initiative to put away the bowls and chopsticks. Holding the bowl with a pig's trotter left, Miu Miu watched Qin Yuchen enter the kitchen. Those who cook don't wash the dishes, so this division of labor is quite reasonable. Miu Miu thought about it, took out the disposable gloves from the refrigerator, and turned to glance at Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen concentrated on washing the bowl. Miu Miu put on his gloves like a thief, sat back at the dining table, ate a mouthful of sauced pig's trotters, glanced at Qin Yuchen, and looked at Qin Yuchen's mouthful of sauced pig's trotters, trying not to expose the way he ate pig's trotters to Qin Yuchen's eyes. Fortunately, Qin Yuchen did not look back. Miu Miu quickly finished drying the pig's trotter in his hand, threw away the remains, and hid in the room. In the summer, I was sweating a lot. Miu Miu took out his phone and went into the bathroom, clicked on the music app, followed the song list collected by the original owner to play, put the phone on the sink, and began to take a shower and wash his hair. Music is also a way to understand each other. The more details you know, the less likely you will be exposed, and you can take care of your own safety in all aspects. As soon as Miu Miu took off his t-shirt, he was startled by the black voice that exploded from the phone. Miu Miu. Miu Miu touched the phone screen and opened the playlist to read. Dude, underground rock. The original owner's hobbies are quite wild. Miu Miu withdrew his hand, took a shower and shook his head and legs following the music. His scalp felt heavy when he was shaking, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Girls with long hair take extra effort to wash their hair. Miu Miu rubbed his head and rubbed the foam, and sighed while taking a bath accompanied by the fierce performance of the electric guitar. As soon as he put on his pajamas, he felt his back was soaked by the long wet hair. Miu Miu. I fucking. Miu Miu took a deep breath. Miu Miu gritted his teeth and found out the hair dryer. When he got divorced and broke up with Qin Yuchen, he must have cut the 3,000 threads of trouble immediately. I even want to shave my head. I don't care about the original owner. Miu Miu was still dreaming that he might go back one day when he woke up. Leaving the money intact to the original owner was his last tenderness. As for things like marriage and women's clothing, of course, they can be discarded as soon as they can. He will open up a brand new future for the original owner. There will be no fraudulent marriage, no women's clothing, and no wrong background, so he will have a chance to change his mind and start a new life. Miu Miu felt that he was really kind. Whether it's for the original owner or Qin Yuchen. Miu Miu dried her hair, pretending not to see the fluffy lion-like shape on her head, pulled her hair in a mess, and left the bathroom with her mobile phone. There is a laptop in the room, which should belong to the original owner. It needs a power-on password, but Miu Miu failed to try it out. He can only use his mobile phone as the next best thing, and start to understand the current hot spots in the world, and see if he can try to start earning some income for himself. Qin Yuchen was in the study, and just finished a video conference when he heard a knock on the door. Miu Miu probed in from the door again. Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen glanced at him. Please. Miu Miu paused, realizing that the word "excuse me" is too unfamiliar and not suitable for their current relationship. Miu Miu changed his words. Do you have a notebook you haven't used? And a pen? The question is so, but Miu Miu knows that there is. When he came to search the study room before, he saw that there was an entire shelf on the bottom floor of the bookcase full of unused notebooks. After a few years, how could Qin Yuchen remember if he had any notebooks that he hadn't used? He looked at Miu Miu with messy hair, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said seemingly unintentionally, "You find it yourself." Oh. Miu Miu nodded, without any hesitation, went straight to the bookcase, squatted down and opened the cabinet, took out 2 notebooks, and then took out a pen from the pen holder on the table. Thank you. Qin Yuchen watched as Miu Miu walked briskly out of the study room with his notebook and pen. Miu Miu is very familiar with his study. This is normal. Living under the same roof, it is a matter of course to be familiar with the furnishings at home. But once you know that the other party has bad intentions, this familiarity will be particularly eye-catching. Qin Yuchen flipped through the documents and materials at hand, looked up at the corner where the surveillance was hidden, thought for a while, and felt that this would not work. If you want to fish for law enforcement, you can't completely use real bait to fish. In the past 2 days, I replaced the important materials in the study. Qin Yuchen is not sure when Miu Miu betrayed him, maybe at the beginning, or maybe halfway. But if you prepare early, you can't go wrong. Miu Miu returned to the room, took out the receipt in the bag, rolled on the bed, lay down on the bed and began to record today's accounts. He didn't want to use the original owner's money, but he was penniless now, so he could only withdraw part of the original owner's account balance for the time being. For this part, he will make up for it when he earns money later. Miu Miu wrote down the account, opened another notebook, and began to search for entries in film and television entertainment on various platforms. For a rookie with no fan base, no background, and no financial support, the fastest way to get ahead is to gain popularity. Miu Miu has a lot of skills and experience in operating video accounts, so he has some experience in these things. It's just that before crossing over, he inherited most of his things from his mother. Miu Miu's mother is a tailor, but in the modern age where everything can be industrialized, tailoring is not a good job. However, Miu Miu's mother was quick-witted, and became the first batch of Dobayo sellers at the beginning when online shopping had not yet flourished. And was shot dead on the beach because of insufficient production capacity. Miu Miu sighs every time he thinks about it. My mother used to have a good time with the sign that each piece is unique and never hits the shirt. But a person's energy is really limited, and her output can't keep up with the rapid development and rapidly expanding online shopping industry, and finally fell silent. Miu Miu's manual enlightenment came from his mother. Inheriting her mother's craftsmanship and the Dobayo shop, Miu Miu can also rely on the old customers in the shop and the new customers who don't know where to find them. At the same time, she has also developed many strange derivative skills. While searching for current hot spots, Miu Miu was taking notes, and several rows of new film and television entertainment apps and games were added to his phone. These are things that need to be seen and played in person, and then draw inspiration from them. Miu Miu's study continued until late at night. When Qin Yuchen was about to take a rest, he saw through the balcony that the lights in the master bedroom had not been extinguished. Qin Yuchen glanced at the time. It was already 2 o'clock in the morning. He thought for a while, then lifted his foot, walked quietly to the master bedroom, and tentatively pressed the doorknob. The door opened. The sound of the video playing fell into his ears the moment the door opened, as if it was a TV series. Under the light, Miu Miu, who was wearing pajamas, was lying on his side on the bed, his hair was disheveled, his mobile phone fell beside his face, and he was still holding a pen in his hand, the tip of which had soaked a piece of ink on the open book. Miu Miu fell asleep, but did not lock the door. Qin Yuchen raised his eyebrows. He is no stranger to Miu Miu's bedroom, but he rarely comes in at night. Because as long as Miu Miu goes to sleep at night, he will definitely lock the door. But not today. Qin Yuchen stood at the door for a long time, staring at Miu Miu who was sleeping soundly on the bed, took off the slippers that would make footsteps, and walked in quietly. He saw the notebook pressed by Miu Miu's hand, on which were written summaries of hotspots 1, 2, 3, hotspot sources, and compatible platforms. It looks like some kind of market analysis, but it's not very professional. Probably because he was extremely sleepy, the words on the paper were like dogs crawling, completely different from the upright lowercase characters in Qin Yuchen's impression. There are a few receipts in another notebook next to it. I can't see the details, but there is a sign exposed outside. It is the fast-selling brand that Miu Miu wore today. The TV series on the mobile phone was still playing. Qin Yuchen glanced at Miu Miu, his eyes turned around on his shriveled chest, and then turned to look at the side guard in the room. Miu Miu didn't even close the flank guard's door. Qin Yuchen saw the fake hanging inside at a glance. Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen's eyes were shaken for a moment, and he took a deep breath silently. Although it was shocking, it was not surprising that he had known about this for a long time. Qin Yuchen walked around Miu Miu's bedroom lightly again, and saw the wedding ring safely kept in the ring box on the dressing table. After taking everything into his eyes, he stopped by the bed again. Miu Miu fell asleep ignorantly, his messy long hair was scattered on his cheeks, neck, and hands, making him look like a butterfly trapped by black fabric. So fragile, so beautiful. Qin Yuchen squinted his eyes, thinking of the betrayal before his rebirth, the ridicule of his opponents, and the appearance of the company he developed by himself. All of these. All because of this liar. Qin Yuchen looked at the sleeping Miu Miu. If now, tear off the beautiful scales of the butterfly, seal the lips and tongue, and cut off the neck, nothing will happen. Qin Yuchen's fingertips twitched. Miu Miu felt a chill in his dream, he muttered coldly, and curled up. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who was shrunk into a ball, closed his eyes to gather himself, turned his head and left the room. Miu Miu sneezed as soon as he was woken up by the alarm clock. He was dazed for a while before realizing that he fell asleep watching the video last night. The temperature of the air conditioner was a bit low, and it seemed that I woke up from the cold in the second half of the night, but I fell asleep again after rolling the quilt. Miu Miu crawled out of the quilt that was messed up by him, looked at the pajamas and quilt cover that had been scratched several times, and got used to it. Laughing to death, no one can write homework without getting sleepy, right? No, 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 no. Miu Miu put away his notebook and pen, plugged in his mobile phone, and went to the bathroom to wash up with his messy hair. A new day, not a new life. It's time for a gentle and kind girl to get up and prepare breakfast for the person who is about to go to work. Miu Miu put down the towel, smiled at the pretty sister whose hair and clothes were messy in the mirror, and then angrily threw the towel into the sink. Oh shit! Shit, better not let him go back one day. Otherwise, he must find the author and let the author experience for himself what gentleness and kindness are. Azai, who was forced to get up early 2 days in a row, was furious. Miu Miu wrung out the towel cursingly, hung it up cursingly, and put on the fake cursingly. The movements were skillful and natural, and the movement of putting the pink bra on the fake was also extremely smooth. After doing all this, Miu Miu raised his head, looked at the beautiful sister in the mirror, and deeply felt that human beings are really adaptable. Once a certain lower limit is refreshed, the mind will quickly rationalize this behavior. That's why there are only 0 and countless times in women's clothing. Miu Miu supported the fake expressionlessly, and put on her pajamas. In a mere day and a half, the ghost knows what he went through. Miu Miu walked out of the room, unaware that he hadn't locked the door last night. He opened the study door and took a look, and found that Qin Yuchen was not sleeping in the study today. But he hasn't gotten up yet. Miu Miu pulled off the rubber band on his wrist to tie up his hair, and turned his head to the terrace. At 7 o'clock in the morning of July, the sun has already climbed up. Miu Miu put down the hose used for watering in his hand, moved the wrought iron rack with succulents to a cool place under the stairs, swept away the stagnant water, and returned to the house before the temperature rose. As soon as he entered the room, he happened to run into Qin Yuchen, who got up when he heard the noise. Qin Yuchen glanced uncontrollably at the curvature of Miu Miu's chest, the corner of his mouth trembled, and he turned his head away. This little liar is quite dedicated, he commented in his heart. Miu Miu looked at Qin Yuchen, who walked into the bathroom. Is it okay to eat noodles today? I remember I left tomato and egg soup yesterday. Qin Yuchen stopped turning on the faucet. I fell. Miu Miu? Shame on wasting food. Qin Yuchen looked in the mirror, and the something wrong that he noticed yesterday spread again. When will Miu Miu pay attention to the leftovers? Miu Miu wondered if there was more than half a bowl of tomato and egg soup left over from yesterday, or the kind of big bowl of soup. This morning, a bowl of instant noodle soup for 2 people will be good. Qin Yuchen, the prodigal son, fell down directly. Hateful. Have you been eroded by capitalism? Qin Yuchen. Have you forgotten your adoptive parents from an ordinary working family? Miu Miu took a deep breath, opened the refrigerator, and tried to be calm. I can change to other soup. Can I eat noodles? Qin Yuchen was suspicious for a moment, responded, and turned on the faucet. Miu Miu made 2 bowls of soy sauce egg drop soup, thinking that since Qin Yuchen has a bad habit of not eating leftovers, he should be more discretionary in the amount of food he cooks. Miu Miu turned off the fire, poured the shredded pork on the noodles, and placed a poached egg on each of the 2 bowls of noodles. Qin Yuchen observed Miu Miu while eating the noodles. After the meal, he didn't find anything wrong. No. The fact that Miu Miu wakes up in the morning and cooks and takes care of the green plants is very strange in itself. Although this is obviously to please him. But still something is wrong. Qin Yuchen finished his meal with a slight frown, and couldn't let go of his brows until he arrived at the company. He sat in his office, thought for a moment, opened the monitoring page of the study, narrowed it down to the lower left corner of the computer screen, and began to process his work. The whole morning passed, and there was no movement in the study. Also, how could there be movement so quickly? Qin Yuchen thought casually. The most taboo thing about deception is impatience, especially the deceit that manipulates people's hearts. Before Qin Yuchen could finish his thought, he saw Miu Miu push open the door of the study. Qin Yuchen. Qin Yuchen put down the document in his hand and enlarged the monitoring page. Miu Miu took his mobile phone to make a summary of the morning. His whole body was dizzy, and his eyes were blurred. Phone screens are too small. Really too small. He was already short-sighted, and if he tortured his poor eyes like this, he might go blind directly. When Miu Miu thought of the laptop that couldn't be turned on, he felt extremely sorry, and then turned his head and typed his idea on the 27-inch curved screen computer in Qin Yuchen's study. Qin Yuchen is not at home now. Miu Miu jumped up from the sofa as soon as he turned over, walked into the study with his notebook in his hand, pressed the power button for 10 seconds, and instantly became sluggish. What gave him the confidence that Qin Yuchen's computer would not have a password? Miu Miu, who failed to protect his eyesight, was depressed and huddled in the boss chair, holding up his mobile phone and continuing to struggle. Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu holding his mobile phone facing his computer screen in the surveillance screen, snorted emotionlessly, and saved the screen. Qin Yuchen got off work very late today. When Miu Miu heard the noise from the door in the room, it was already dark for a long time. Miu Miu upholds the personality of a gentle, kind, and good girl, and leaves a light in the entrance. Hearing the noise, he walked out of the room and asked Qin Yuchen, "Have you had dinner yet?" Qin Yuchen looked at Miu Miu, who seemed nothing happened, and pursed his lips. He really doesn't understand. His career has just started now, and the future may not be very bright, so what is there for Miu Miu to lie to him like this? Qin Yuchen couldn't figure it out. He stood silently under the faint light left in the entrance, watching Miu Miu silently. The black suit on his body absorbed the surrounding light unscrupulously like an abyss. At this moment, Miu Miu's emotions disappeared. Help! Help! Can anyone give a confirmation that Qin Yuchen is now a man or a ghost? Miu Miu was so frightened that he froze in place, afraid that if he moved, Qin Yuchen, who was like a ghost, would rush up and kill him with white knives in and red knives out. But in the next second, Qin Yuchen looked away, lowered his head and changed his shoes. "I've eaten. Forget it, it doesn't matter. When he's had enough of seeing the little liar struggle, he'll take him to court." When Qin Yuchen thought about it, he immediately felt a lot more relaxed. He glanced at Miu Miu, who was still frozen in place, and his gaze was clearly focused on his chest. The fake prepared by the original owner are full of B. They are upright and round, full of drape, and very solid in weight. Miu Miu can see the size of the arc when he lowers his head a little. Qin Yuchen's eyes were dark and substantive under the dim light, as if he wanted to take off the clothes of the person in front of him. Miu Miu had never been looked at with such eyes before, and instinctively took 2 steps back. His hands behind his back were tightly entangled, and his fingertips curled up. Qin Yuchen raised his eyes to look at him because of his retreat, with a slight sarcasm. Miu Miu stared at Qin Yuchen a little shyly, and then seemed to think of something, and quickly reacted. "Hello Qin Yuchen. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? You can't do it, it's useless to read it. Relying on Qin Yuchen's unknown hidden disease, Miu Miu looked back on the spot with his head held high. Qin Yuchen stopped where he was, not understanding what Miu Miu was suddenly proud of. Maybe he stole the data from his computer. Miu Miu knew his computer password. But it doesn't matter, these days at the beginning of the career, there is nothing really important on the computer. Qin Yuchen walked out of the porch, took off his coat as he walked, and raised his hand to pull the tie that bound the formal suit. Miu Miu, who was originally righteous, watched his movements, his scalp exploded, and his cat eyes widened. What are you doing? What are you doing? Do you still want to try to break through the physical limit and do something? Miu Miu took 3 big steps back, hid behind the door of the master bedroom, and looked at Qin Yuchen vigilantly. Qin Yuchen threw his coat on the sofa and glanced at him, not understanding what this man was doing so suddenly. Miu Miu. Oh, misunderstood. Miu Miu silently retracted into the room, closed the door, and locked it with a click. Fortunately, Qin Yuchen couldn't guess what he was thinking. Miu Miu scratched his hands in embarrassment, rolled around on the bed, and finally plunged his head into the pillow, pretending to be dead. Qin Yuchen put down his coat and was about to pour a glass of water. When he turned his head, he saw a dark environment, and the rice cooker in the kitchen was still on with the keep warm option on. Qin Yuchen? How? Did this little liar leave him a meal? Qin Yuchen also took off his tie, turned on the kitchen light, and uncovered the rice cooker. A bowl of steamed pork ribs with taro and a bowl of rice are warming in the rice cooker. Qin Yuchen turned his head and glanced at the closed master bedroom door. After a moment of silence, he brought out the still warm food from the rice cooker. Although dinner is over, it's time for supper now. It's a shame to waste food. Qin Yuchen sat at the dining table with taro steamed ribs and rice. To be honest, this little liar's craft is not bad. It was another early morning. Miu Miu stretched out his hand from under the quilt, groped for a long time on the edge of the pillow, and finally pressed the alarm clock. He opened his eyes with difficulty, turned over, looked at the lines on the ceiling, and began to seriously think about whether it was more difficult to strangle Qin Yuchen or strangle himself. After thinking about it, he felt that the easiest thing was to simply close his eyes and give up the matter of getting up early. Miu Miu thought about it, clasped his fingers on his belly, and closed his eyes peacefully. In the next second, the chirping of birds outside the window rang together with the set second alarm clock, which complemented Miu Miu's lifeless eyes like a walking corpse. Holding the quilt, Miu Miu suddenly turned over and got up, opened the window and roared at the lively banyan tree below, startled 5 or 6 flying birds, and closed the window with a snap. It's so loud. It's annoying. What's the Linjiang forest accommodation experience if you live in the city center? Miu Miu cursed and rushed into the bathroom to wash up, took a deep breath after washing, turned on the music player, and began to listen to the Great Compassion mantra. Don't be angry, there is no one to replace you when you get sick. Breaking the record, it's the 3rd day. He has been up early for 3 days in a row. This is the level where his mother could cry with joy when she finds out. Miu Miu drooped his shoulders and yawned. He took a hose to water the green plants on the terrace and the roof. After cleaning up the stagnant water, he saw that Qin Yuchen hadn't woken up yet, so he found an aerobics video on his phone. The best way of the day is in the morning. I'm getting up, it's a pity not to exercise. Miu Miu climbed up to the garden on the top floor, frantically jumping up and down following the video. Qin Yuchen lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling that was ringing non-stop for a long time, then got up from the bed with a dark face. Miu Miu is a housekeeper, and after following the energetic girls in the video for a mere section, he feels that he is already spreading his wings on the verge of death. He turned off the video, squeezed his limp arms, sighed faintly, turned his head and went downstairs. There was the sound of Qin Yuchen washing up in the bathroom. Miu Miu turned on the rice cooker and was taken aback for a moment. The food he left for Qin Yuchen yesterday is gone. The steamed pork ribs with taro were not thrown away from the kitchen waste, and there were no bowls and chopsticks left in the sink. Miu Miu? Did Qin Yuchen eat it last night? Miu Miu was a little surprised, and couldn't help turning his head to look at the bathroom. The bathroom door was closed tightly, and only the sound of water could be heard. Dare Qin Yuchen not have the problem of not eating leftovers? That means, the one who doesn't eat the leftovers is the original owner? Miu Miu withdrew his gaze and opened the refrigerator. Looking at it this way, Qin Yuchen is unexpectedly easy to serve. He doesn't seem to judge the taste of the things on the table. Although it can be seen that he doesn't like leaf vegetables and light dishes very much, he won't be picky when he comes across these dishes. The steamed pork ribs with taro last night was actually kept because Miu Miu didn't like it. After all, when no one is ordering, it is definitely more inclined to cook what you like to eat. Considering the existence of another person, you can choose to match it with something you don't like so much, which is called balanced nutrition. Miu Miu cooked 2 meat dishes and 1 vegetarian food last night. He ate up all his favorite food. Thinking that Qin Yuchen didn't like leafy vegetables, he ate up all the water spinach. Only steamed pork ribs with taro, which he doesn't like very much, was left, which tasted quite light. Last night, when Miu Miu only kept this dish, he was quite guilty, but when he saw the emptied rice cooker today, he immediately felt confident. Miu Miu covered the rice cooker, and decided to try again to see if Qin Yuchen was really so easy to serve. Years of experience in battling wits and courage with Dobayo shop customers told him that when he can make progress, he must not stand still. Miu Miu dismissed the idea of asking Qin Yuchen what he wanted to eat, rummaged through the refrigerator, took 2 eggs, opened a box of sweet wine, and a box of sesame glutinous rice balls. When Qin Yuchen came out after shaving, the aroma of rum was already coming from the kitchen. He paused, looked at Miu Miu who was busy in the kitchen, and after a while, sat down at the dining table. It's quite interesting to watch this little liar cook different meals every day to please him. Especially thinking that everything Miu Miu is doing now is useless, and even feels a little cool. When Miu Miu was holding 2 bowls of glutinous rice and sweet wine and turned around, he met Qin Yuchen's eyes. Miu Miu was shocked. He glanced at the sunlight coming in from the terrace, then at Qin Yuchen bathed in the sunlight, and finally moved his gaze to Qin Yuchen's shadow. There are shadows, not ghosts. But the man really didn't make a sound when he walked. Miu Miu felt that sooner or later she would be scared to death by Qin Yuchen. With a blank face, he walked out of the kitchen with a bowl in his hand, and put Qin Yuchen's breakfast in front of him. As expected, Qin Yuchen ate without saying a word, and did not express any opinion on today's breakfast. Miu Miu bit the spoon, making sure that Qin Yuchen was really easy to serve. Oh, the word serving is not even used, because Qin Yuchen will take the initiative to wash the dishes after meals judging by the cleanliness of the stove every time he cleans up. It is estimated that the usual housework is also done. Miu Miu looked at Qin Yuchen and felt that this guy was miserable. Such a good man, why did he have such an idiot author? Life is ups and downs and she was cheated into a marriage. After rebirth, she came back to kill the quartet but couldn't push her sister away. Grass. You are miserable, Qin Yuchen. This is almost to the point where those who hear it are sad and those who see it cry. Qin Yuchen suddenly felt a chill. He raised his eyes to look at Miu Miu, and found that the other party was biting the spoon and looking at him, but he was obviously distracted. Miu Miu is still sitting in the corner farthest from him today. Qin Yuchen was not surprised. Ever since Miu Miu proposed a divorce to him, she has shown a very clear intention to draw a line, lest she have any unnecessary contact with him. Don't want to get involved with him? Qin Yuchen paused when he stirred the sweet wine. He remembered. In fact, Miu Miu's attitude has always been like this. He always uses poor health as an excuse, rarely goes out with him, and hardly participates in business communication with him even if it is some occasions that need to bring a female companion. Mew Mew. Also, I never accompanied him to attend, and even called it I Believe in You. Mew Mew refused all public occasions where he appeared with him, and he hadn't even noticed anything wrong before. Qin Yuchen narrowed his eyes as he looked at Mew Mew, who was still in a daze. The more Mew Mew wants, the more he doesn't want to make him wishful. The more Mew Mew didn't want it, the more he wanted to force it. Qin Yuchen withdrew his gaze, ate a glutinous rice ball, and began to think about the recent social occasions. Mew Mew sneezed a little, came back to his senses, looked at Qin Yuchen, who was still buried in cooking, and started eating too. He took 2 bites and suddenly let out an ah. Qin Yuchen looked up. Mew Mew hissed lightly, "Qin Yuchen, don't drive today." Qin Yuchen suddenly came to his senses, glanced at Tianjia Kongdan, then at Mew Mew, not sure whether this person did it on purpose or not. Mew Mew felt guilty. "I'm sorry. This is really not intentional, but I just made it when I saw the ingredients." Qin Yuchen stared at him expressionlessly, and finally withdrew his gaze, lowered his head and drank the remaining rum in one breath, changed his clothes and went out. "The back looks a little angry." Mew Mew must be angry. The dishes were flushed out without washing. Mew Mew watched Qin Yuchen enter the elevator, scratched his hands, scratched his head, and finally stood up disheveledly to wash the pot, and prayed frantically that Qin Yuchen would not hold grudges. Mew Mew sighed and wiped his hands dry, and began today's study with a sigh. His initial plan is to set up a video account first, see if he can package and promote himself, and then open a store in the next step, or join someone else's team. Among the handcrafts, he is most proficient in miniature clothing, commonly speaking, doll clothing, which means making clothes for toys, including but not limited to puppet, doll, BJD, and so on. This craft can be regarded as a variant of the tailoring that he learned from his mother when he was young. It is a new way out for Mew Mew after the normal clothes made by hand were gradually replaced by the wave of industrialization. Mew Mew checked around in the past 2 days, and the ecology of this industry is not too different from his original world. Should be able to eat a meal. Mew Mew cheered up and was about to continue to summarize and analyze, when a message popped up on WeChat, which had no new news for a long time. "Mr. Chen, honey, you haven't been here for a long time. Do you have an appointment this afternoon?" Mew Mew? Mew Mew was shocked. There were sparks and lightning in Mew Mew's mind, and there was a burst of jingling and clanging. "Mr. Chen, have you forgotten me?" Wronged Mew Mew. God, God! What is this? What is this? Isn't Qin Yuchen's cuckold surnamed Chen? He has obviously read all the chat records in this phone. There is no such exciting partner. Could it be that he missed something when he checked WeChat before? Ah, so to speak, difficult. Is this the one? That's it. That, the green hat of Qin Yuchen's green hat. Mew Mew slapped his thigh and exclaimed awesome. Mew Mew excitedly opened WeChat, swiped up, and instantly collapsed. Oh, beauty salons. Whispering sound. Boring. Mew Mew fell back on the sofa, uninterested. He checked the chat records again, and found that the original owner had been going there twice a week since half a year ago, but he hadn't been there this week because he came. Mew Mew raised his hand and touched his face. Do all beautiful women have to go to beauty parlors regularly? Mew Mew, who had never been in such a mysterious area, hesitated. The original owner has been going. Is it not good if he doesn't go? After much deliberation, Mew Mew decided to go back to the past. Mr. Chen, okay, is it okay at 3:30 this afternoon? Mew, yes. Mr. Chen, Rose. Mew Mew stared at the chat window for a while, and suddenly realized that he didn't know the address of the beauty salon. Mew Mew. Mew Mew clicked on Mr. Chen's profile, and as soon as he opened it, he saw that his WeChat ID name is A. Yummy Beauty and Health Club at. Okay, here's the address. This Chen should be a beautician? Miu Miu, who was blind to this aspect, searched for the address of the shop and sighed deeply. After studying for a whole morning, after lunch, I started to toss about the image of going out. The original owner's usual external image is mostly based on the clothes in the cloakroom. Miu Miu directly pain mask. He looked at the t-shirt and jeans he had bought earlier, with tears in his eyes. Damn it! When can we get divorced? Miu Miu got her hair done, put on a mint green tulle dress, selected matching accessories and shoe bags very familiarly, stepped on rattan wedge shoes and stood in the porch, lost in thought. Oops! It seems that he is about to fully integrate into the role setting of women's clothing. This is only the third day, so there shouldn't be any major problems if this continues. Miu Miu walked into the elevator, looked at the beautiful younger sister reflected in the mirrors in all directions, and twitched her legs in fear. Good brother, don't worry, I will not abandon you to be my younger sister. Miu Miu clenched his fists to encourage Xiao Miu Miu. Xiao Mu Mu may feel that this person is sick, and did not give any reaction. The elevator doors opened on the 5th floor. Miu Miu was taken aback, and saw the orange-eared head and the entrance on the 5th floor at a glance. Unlike the top floor where Miu Miu lives, the elevator directly enters the house. Maybe because the lower floors are always likely to be passed by the residents upstairs, so there is an entrance door from the entrance to the living room on the 5th floor. Now the entrance door is wide open, revealing the busy people inside. Lu Jiaoming stood at the elevator entrance, propped the elevator door, and greeted Miu Miu, "Good afternoon." Good afternoon." Miu Miu looked at him in bewilderment, then took 2 steps back to make room for Lu Jiaoming. In fact, the space in the elevator is big enough, even if he doesn't get out of the way, it's still enough for Lu Jiaoming to come in, but Miu Miu still moved back for a moment. Lu Jiaoming's heart was subtly pricked by Miu Miu's retreat. Woo! He saw the elevator go up to the 6th floor and waited here on purpose. Lu Jiaoming firmly supported the elevator door, just to say a few more words to the beautiful girl, "I officially moved in today." Miu Miu was taken aback, "Moved in?" "Yes, yes." Lu Jiaoming shook his tail and nodded, "We will really be neighbors from now on." "Really bought it? Really moved in?" "No." "Then Qin Yuchen doesn't sell the house anymore?" Miu Miu's head buzzed. Lu Jiaoming muttered, "What should I call you?" "Call Dad." As I thought instinctively, before he recovered, he heard Lu Jiaoming ask again, "Can I add you on WeChat?" Miu Miu was stunned, he hesitated, "What are you going to do?" "Of course I want to chat with pretty girls." Lu Jiaoming's face collapsed for a moment when he thought of the group of bald men he confronted every day at home and in the company. He just likes to play and work with good-looking little brothers and sisters. What's wrong with Yanggu? Of course Lu Jiaoming also knew that he couldn't say such words directly. "I just saw a lot of green plants planted on your terrace, and I want to learn from you." "That's it, it's okay." Miu Miu took out his phone. Lu Jiaoming also quickly took out his mobile phone and said, "I'll buy flower pots and seeds later, and I may have to trouble you to come to my house to help me take a look." "What?" Miu Miu paused when he unlocked the phone, raised his eyes to look at Lu Jiaoming, and flashed a series of words in his mind, such as wife and neighbor Lao Wang, the day when the husband is not at home, lonely in the empty boudoir, the kitten wants a home, strange little pieces like that. Miu Miu was silent for a moment, and reminded, "You know that I'm married, right?" Lu Jiaoming nodded, "I know, what's wrong?" Miu Miu? "No? What's wrong?" "Actually, my husband is better than me." Miu Miu began to decline, and moved out of Qin Yuchen to try to make this buddy quit. "Why don't you add him when he comes back?" Lu Jiaoming thought of Qin Yuchen he met yesterday, and nodded again and again, "Okay, I will add it." Upstairs, the couple looks very good looking. Who doesn't like a good-looking person? Lu Jioming rubbed his hands happily. Mew mew. Unexpectedly, does it take all this? Mew Mew looked at Lu Jioming in shock. Although people's spleen awakening is free, but I still suggest you see a psychiatrist. The author has something to say. Mew Mew, mistake. Finally exchanged WeChat. Mew Mew looked at Lu Jioming, who smiled and waved to him, feeling a little dazed. As the elevator door closed, Mew Mew remembered the first cooperation between Qin Yuchen and Lu Jioming. Oh, it's not so much a cooperation as Lu Jioming unilaterally giving money. The specific process is as follows. During the transaction of buying and selling houses, Qin Yuchen and Lu Jioming exchanged a few words. Lu Jioming inquired about Qin Yuchen's work industry, Qin Yuchen answered, and then inquired about Lu Jioming's work in reverse. After knowing that Lu Jioming works in Liuqing Group, he contacted Lu Jioming's surname, and Qin Yuchen's mind became alive. He came back from rebirth, knowing that the general direction of future development will not be without the artificial intelligence market, so he intentionally or unintentionally mentioned the idea of an AI intelligent community. It is not the face scanning, code scanning, and fingerprint password pressing that has become popular, but fully automatic and unmanned management. At that time, Lu Jioming became interested, exchanged contact information with Qin Yuchen, and returned with investment within a month. When Mew Mew watched it, he really didn't feel anything was wrong. A cool article, the protagonist puts forward an idea, and then someone immediately sends him a pillow when he is dozing off. Isn't it normal? A qualified younger brother should act as such a tool person. But Zhuangwen doesn't pay attention to the logic of details, and it reflects the reality. Mew Mew looked at the newly added Lu Jioming on WeChat with a delicate expression. Although it is said that refreshing the spleen cannot be generalized from person to person, but never mind. Mew Mew considers himself a well-informed nerd, and will never discriminate against people with a strange spleen. Mew Mew turned on the navigation, and with plenty of time, he followed the navigation to find the subway station. Mew Mew wants to know more about the living habits and details of the original owner, and see if he can find any way to return to freedom. It is necessary to find someone who is a little familiar with the original owner but not too familiar, so that the other party can not only have a certain understanding of the original owner, but also make it easy for him to ask any questions without being obtrusive. Mew Mew crackled and started to search for entries related to beauty salons while he was on the road. By the time the subway station was announced, Mew Mew had already read 100 tips for preventing pitfalls in beauty salons, how to deal with beauticians without disclosing your privacy, anti-beauty sales textbook and so on. Without exception, these posts all mentioned that beauticians are especially good at chatting and selling. Selling doesn't matter, he has no money anyway. But it's wonderful to be able to chatter in particular. Looking at the Mr. Chen who contacted him, the style of chatting on WeChat is also very lively, and he will definitely be able to get a lot of news. Social junk is in high spirits. Good. The soldiers are fine and the food is sufficient. It's just a matter of going to the battlefield to fight wits with the beautician. Mew Mew rushed to the address of the navigation in a threatening manner, then froze in his steps, stood on the side of the road, looked at the door of the house, and almost didn't dare to go in. Even if he has never been to a beauty salon, he knows that beauty salons usually don't look like this. The white sandy beach on the seashore is surrounded by yellow bamboo fences to form an irregular shape. Unknown vines bloom and climb between the fences, allowing people to vaguely glimpse the dry landscape garden inside. A triangular wooden raft hangs from a corner of the flower wall, with the word Yummy engraved on it. Go around 2 bends along the flower wall, cross the black stone road, and pass through the bamboo fence gate to officially arrive at the lobby. The lobby is facing the tidal ocean, behind which you can vaguely see many wooden corridors leading to different directions. Mew Mew paused and began to panic. Some people believe that this resort is a resort. Mew Mew felt a little difficult to breathe. This kind of battle is almost unheard of by Azai. Boom, 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 the retreat drum beat. Miu Miu turned on her toes and was about to run when the young lady at the front desk came over with a smile. Hi, do you have an appointment? Miu Miu. Miu Miu said with difficulty, yes. The lady at the front desk maintained a professional smile, okay, which teacher did you make an appointment for? Chen. Miu Miu looked at the face of the young lady at the front desk, hesitating, Teacher Chen. The lady at the front desk suddenly said, ah, you are Ms. Miu Miu, right? Miu Miu cautiously, yes. Teacher Chen is already waiting for you, please come with me. Miu Miu panicked and felt guilty, followed the lady at the front desk through the corridor with a sullen face, and arrived at the destination. Teacher Chen. The front desk greeted, and turned to Miu Miu with a smile, Ms. Miu, I wish you a pleasant stay. Miu Miu nodded cautiously, thank you. He watched the young lady at the front desk leave, and turned to look at the gate of the building he had just arrived at. A man was waiting at the door, with curly and side-parted hair meticulously arranged, his facial features strong and clear, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed eyes, and when he saw Miu Miu, he nodded to him expressionlessly. It's hard for Miu Miu to imagine that such a serious person would send him a WeChat message in that tone. Could it be that the contrast is cute? Confused, Miu Miu raised his foot and walked over. When approaching, he took the opportunity to glance at the other party's badge pinned to his white coat. Mr. Chen's name is Chen Li. He stretched out his hand to Miu Miu, his voice was cold, let me do it. Miu Miu hesitated for a moment, then handed over the bag. What happened? This Mr. Chen's painting style is a bit different from what he imagined. Is it still the same today? Chen Li said in a business-like tone. Miu Miu. Miu Miu was stuck. Oops, what was the old look like? I don't know what services the original owner has. This beauty club does not look like an ordinary role, it must not only provide beauty services. The difficulty suddenly became higher. Miu Miu felt very stiff. Chen Li didn't get an answer, he turned his head to look at Miu Miu with a bad face, frowned, didn't continue to ask, and took Miu Miu into a private room. This single room is so spacious that it can almost be used as a hotel room. It even has a private bathroom and windows that can see the sea from the eaves. Now the sea view is fragmented by tulle curtains and a hollow carved screen, and even the light is hazy, making the warm yellow lights in the room useful. The incense sticks on the side rose into curls of white smoke, exuding a gentle and sweet fragrance. The environment is very quiet. It was so quiet that only the faint sound of the waves could be heard, as well as the rustling movements of that Chen Li. Miu Miu's scalp froze for 2 seconds, then his scalp exploded. Wait, is such an environment in a beauty salon? This is really a regular beauty salon, right? Isn't there some hidden menu? Miu Miu stood in the middle of the room, terrified, not only did not dare to sit down, but moved 2 steps towards the door. He looked around cautiously. The bed is not like a hotel bed, it looks like a single person. Honey water. Chen Li handed over a glass of water. Miu Miu took the water glass, but did not dare to drink it. This kind of closed and secret space, and being in the same room with a person of the opposite, on the surface, is very disturbing no matter how you look at it. Something is wrong, bro. Something is wrong here, no matter how you look at it, it is wrong. Azai felt a little scared. Why don't you run away? Nothing is difficult in the world, as long as you are willing to give up. Miu Miu withdrew and knocked again. Chen Li looked at Miu Miu who was holding a water glass and said nothing, pushed his glasses, and patted the bed, let's do as before. Miu Miu's hand holding the paper cup tightened. Face, hand, hair, and feet first, okay. Miu Miu, Sigma? Sounds like a safe bet? Miu Miu is cautious, same as usual. Well, same old. Mew Mew took a deep breath. Damn it, here we come. Mew Mew gritted his teeth and lay down on the bed. You seem to be very tired today. Mew Mew heard the other party say, accompanied by the slight sound of water waves. There was a hint of coolness, without emotion, as if going through the process. Did something happen? Mew Mew opened his eyes, looked at Chen Li who was preparing something, thought for a while, and then used the omnipotent speech technique answering questions with questions. Mew Mew pursed her lips, tried to look aggrieved, and asked, "What kind of person do you think I am?" The other party showed a choked expression. Mew Mew. Grass, why is this expression? Brother, you are not right, don't you comfort me when you see a beautiful woman wronged? Chen Li pushed his glasses and recited without emotion, you are a good person. Mew Mew. Mew Mew began to suspect that the posts on the internet were all lies. He ruthlessly pierced it, perfunctory. In this quiet environment, his voice was very soft, low and soft, and he couldn't hear the slightest accusation, but seemed to be coquettish with a little bit of complaint. Chen Li took a deep breath and reminded, close your eyes. Mew Mew closed her eyes obediently, and heard the other party's cold voice, I think you are a very free person. Mew Mew, what? It's freedom to act. Mew Mew couldn't see the other person's expression, but felt his face was gently wiped with warm water. I was surprised when I heard that you were getting married last time. Mew Mew responded meaningfully, expecting the other party to say more. So, you're really married? Mew Mew, yes. Chen Li said oh without emotion, and then fell silent. That's it. That's it, that's it. Mew Mew was stunned. This is not the same as what is said on the internet. How about chatting? Why don't you chatter anymore? Mew Mew is in a hurry. He is a social waste, he is always poked and jumped by others, even if it is a Dobeo store, it is the customer who asks the question first, and he is responsible for answering. Mew Mew felt anxious, he grabbed the quilt covering his body, and picked it with his fingertips, as if he could pick something out of his pitiful communication experience. He can't directly ask people such stupid questions as do you know my hobbies or what do you know about my circle of friends, right? Hearing the slight rubbing sound, Chen Li raised his eyes and glanced at Mew Mew's fingertips picking out the quilt cover. After a while, the rubbing sound gradually slowed down and finally disappeared. Mew Mew fell asleep. He got up early for several days in a row, and finally couldn't resist the temptation of going to bed. Chen Li paused, adjusted his glasses, and continued the process step by step. When Mew Mew woke up, his hair had already been washed, and even the hand care had come to an end. Mew Mew. I am. Are you here to sleep? Mew Mew was almost mad at himself. Chen Li was rubbing Mew Mew's hand and doing manual exercises for him. He obviously felt that Mew Mew's hands had become a lot rougher, and there were some small scars that didn't exist before. The scars are not deep, but they are very noticeable to the touch. Chen Li pushed his glasses, have you not had time to buy a ring yet? Mew Mew was taken aback, and subconsciously replied, I bought it, but I didn't wear it. Not wearing it? Chen Li seemed to snort coldly, and stopped talking again. Mew Mew looked at the expressionless beautician, and belatedly realized that Mr. Chen didn't seem to like him. Mew Mew thought to himself that he came here for the first time today, and no matter how you think about it, he will not be the one who hates him, so the only one left is the original owner. Mew Mew stared at Chen Lifa for a while, then suddenly said, Teacher Chen is very different from the one on WeChat. Chen Li didn't raise his head, that's a cliché template issued by the company. Mew Mew, dot. It's confirmed, this buddy really doesn't like the original owner. Damn it, I really want to know what evil the original owner did. Mew Mew carefully looked at Chen Li for a few times, thought it over in his heart, and finally closed his mouth silently, choosing not to disturb others. Please wait a moment. After finishing the hand massage, Chen Li finished drying Miu Miu's hair, turned around and walked into the utility room on the side to prepare things for foot care. Miu Miu sat up, looked at his hands, and felt more than 1 degree of tenderness. Picking up the mirror next to him, the face in the mirror could be seen to be a little whiter even under the overly soft lighting in the room. Miu Miu was puzzled when he thought of the layer after layer of water and milk essence that had been applied to the face before. Such obvious whitening, is it because the face is soaked? Miu Miu pondered for a moment, adhering to scientific and rigorous thinking, put down the mirror, raised his hand and rubbed his face vigorously. As soon as Chen Li came back, he saw Miu Miu kneading his face like kneading dough, and couldn't help but pause. Miu Miu didn't notice him, so he picked up the mirror and looked again. After scientific and rigorous experiments, the sudden whitening of the face should not be due to hair soaking, because there is no layer of dead skin rubbed out, so there is a high probability that it is not hair soaking. Miu Miu held up the mirror and looked around. Under the soft warm light, the hair hanging on both sides of his cheeks cast shadows, making his already small face look more delicate. Miu Miu brushed her hair, shook her bangs, looked at her pretty sister in the mirror, and couldn't help but smile happily. Hey! Nice! Chen Li! Chen Li raised his hand and knocked on the door. Startled, Miu Miu quickly put down the mirror and turned to look at Chen Li. Chen Li pretended he didn't see anything, walked in with a bucket and a medicine bag, and held Miu Miu's dangling feet on the edge of the bed. Today's Miu Miu is a bit strange. In Chen Li's impression, Miu Miu was really not an easy customer to get along with. He couldn't even be called a good person. She is obviously gentle and amiable, and she speaks softly. She looks like a gentle and kind girl, but in fact she is self-willed to the end, and likes to hook up everywhere. In particular, meat and vegetables are not taboo, regardless of whether the other party is married or not. He will directly attack the other party if he takes a fancy to it. He previously said that Miu Miu acted freely, but he was euphemistically expressing that Miu Miu's moral bottom line is quite low. Chen Li himself was very unlucky. He was one of the ones Miu Miu took a fancy to, and he was often entangled. But today is really different. She didn't say any clingy words to him, and she didn't intend to harass him. She was extraordinarily obedient and well-behaved, and even looked a little cute. Is it because you are married? Or because of what happened today? Or did you learn a new routine? Chen Li guessed. His hands moved quickly and neatly. After Miu Miu realized that he didn't like this Mr. Chen, he stopped talking, and the room remained silent until the alarm bell in Miu Miu's hand rang. Miu Miu glanced at the alarm clock and found that it was a cooking reminder at 6:30 in the afternoon. Miu Miu glanced at Chen Li and asked, "How long will it take?" "Half an hour." Miu Miu, ah! Miu Miu hissed softly, thought for a while, and opened the WeChat window with Qin Yuchen. Miu Miu didn't look at the sticky chat records between the original owner and Qin Yuchen before. Anyway, the chat records between Miu Miu and Qin Yuchen stopped abruptly from the day they got their marriage certificate. No one paid attention to anyone. Qin Yuchen didn't come back for dinner yesterday and didn't tell Miu Miu. But as a gentle and kind girl, Miu Miu typed out the news that it was too late to go back to cook today with a blank face. Qin Yuchen, who just walked downstairs from the company. "Mr. Qin, where is it?" "Miu, the beauty parlor still needs half an hour." "Beauty salon?" Qin Yuchen did know where the beauty salon Miu Miu often went to. He had sent Miu Miu there several times, but he always left in a hurry after being delivered to the door, without even showing his face once. Thinking of this, Qin Yuchen deleted the word "seeing" that he typed out, and narrowed his eyes. "Mr. Qin, I will pick you up." "Mr. Qin, are you driving?" Miu Miu looked at these two messages, his whole body was full of confusion. Qin Yuchen is not a dark shark, he is not bad. How could he be so kind? There is fraud. Miu Miu instantly became extremely vigilant. "Miu, no need, I'll just go back by myself." Seeing his reaction, Qin Yuchen snorted coldly, repeated and reiterated. Mr. Qin, are you driving? Mew mew. Mew, no. Qin Yuchen didn't reply, he hailed a taxi and went straight to Yami. Mew Mew was holding the phone, a little nervous, and urged in a low voice, can you hurry up? Just kidding, the environment of this place is so ambiguous, if Qin Yuchen came in and saw it. Mew Mew remembered Qin Yuchen's face of "You Kid Loves Me" when he met him in Lu Jiaoming before, and covered his face in pain. He reasonably suspected that Qin Yuchen would look like a green hat to anyone now. Chen Li raised his eyes, is there something urgent? No. Mew Mew said dryly, my old husband is coming to pick me up, I don't want him to wait any longer. Oh, that's terrible. Chen Li recited without emotion, Mr. Yi heard that you were coming in the afternoon, and he also said that he would come. He usually arrives at about 7 o'clock, and he is used to arriving half an hour earlier. It should be almost here by now. Arrive. Mew Mew looked puzzled, ah. Mr. Yi. Chen Li reminded, Yi Anning. Mew Mew was stunned. Mew Mew's eyes widened. Mew Mew almost passed over on the spot. Fuck me. Damn you. Yes, it's a green hat. It's a genuine green hat. Mew Mew was so frightened that he stumbled and couldn't say a word. Yi Anning, he, come. Well, the last time you said if you have a chance to meet again, let's have a cup of coffee together, he likes you very much. Mew Mew was struck by lightning, Zhong. Chen Li raised his eyes, he is affectionate, you are interested, I pulled a thread, are you unhappy? I can thank you very much. Mew Mew is as angry as a thread, he. No. No. Mew Mew stood up in an instant and retracted his feet, don't press it, don't press it. Chen Li's hand was empty. Mew Mew hurriedly dried her feet and put on her shoes, I'm leaving now, please tell Mr. Yi that I don't mean anything to him. After he finished speaking, he picked up his bag and mobile phone, turned around and left. What are you kidding? If you don't leave now, are you waiting to be shot dead by Qin Yuchen on the spot? Comrade, is ahead. The author has something to say, Chen Li, assist, bring disaster to the east Mew Mew, ITM send you to heaven first and then save myself.